Recording in progress.
The January 23rd Board of Directors meeting is called to order. First, I'd like to ask our interpreters to explain how to access interpretation. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Announcement from the interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, World, and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., Please press ellipsis then interpretation and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish logo in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenos días, aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish Español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. To begin, I'd like to note that we're going to be reordering the agenda today because some board members have time constraints and we also have some legal requirements. So we're pretty much turning it upside down. We're going to start with the RGIS 101 item, followed by the bond issuance, then the IPA performance evaluation, then the consent, and then we're going to conclude with non-agenda public and member comments. So thank you all for your flexibility. And because it's going to be upside down, you have to be flexible. Okay, next, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples. Oops. That means my husband is home. The ring went off. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay-Digueño, the Luiseño, the Copeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from Indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, a couple of remarks from me. As part of our 2026 board engagement program, we're going to be incorporating select offsite meetings and optional 101 orientations focused on specific topics and projects. The first offsite meeting is planned for March 13th, probably replacing the board meeting, featuring a port of entry and toll operations tour. Additional details will be shared in the coming weeks. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Mario for his remarks.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of updates. Earlier this month, we had a meeting between Caltrans, SANDAG, and the County of San Diego with the Association of Planning Groups. Really appreciate the discussion. We were able to identify different areas of cooperation. We will be applying for a grant that's an educational grant and potential reinforcement. So hopefully we will be successful. We talked about State Route 67. We talked about the Bradley ongoing project that Caltrans has there. So it was a great collaboration, in my opinion, and we really appreciate the Planning Association coming and meeting with the 3 agencies.
The association really appreciated that opportunity. And when I describe it to other folks, because we had county, Caltrans, SANDAG, and the association, I describe it as a square with 4 equal sides. So we much appreciated the ability to partner with you. Thank you.
Thank you. We also, our team has been working with the Tribal Working Group on the quarterly interagency technical tribal working group. The last one is January 14 at the Hamul Casino. And we've been following up on Chair Hebner and Vice Chair LaCava had a meeting with Robert Smith, the chairman of Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association. There was some sort of a work plan. We discuss what will be also those low-hanging fruits that we can work with the tribes. So we have been working with them on those different items. We've been tracking the 5 ongoing grants that were passed to the tribes for housing, and also as well as some of the projects SANDAG is working with the tribes for roadway improvements. Regarding Senate Bill 375 reform, the team traveled to Sacramento this week. They continue to work and talk to the stakeholders. We're going to start having more local meetings regarding this effort, and we'll be talking to the executive committee at their next meeting about the next steps and a potential bill about this. And just briefly, a couple of project updates. The California Baja California Border Resiliency Plan that we're working through a grant that Caltrans provided to us. We will be putting out a survey out regarding climate hazards. This is a very important plan that we're working on, because it's not just looking at improvements that need to happen from a transportation perspective, which is what the Border Master Plan does, that Caltrans lead. But this is also how we can have in the border area a resiliency plan based on climate change, and as it relates to our transportation facilities also. So it's kind of bringing it back. And regarding sand replenishment work has begun on replenishing some sand at South Pronto State Beach. This is in partnership also with Caltrans, and it's part of the environmental mitigation effort for the Batequitos Lagoon Double Track Project. At the end of the day, we'll have about 60,000 cubic yards put into the beach, and it's going to be all the way up to 2028 in a way that does not impact or reduces the impact to the users of the beach. So trying to be sensitive about that. Also, the ITAC, we work with them on closing 8 of the 9 outstanding 2018 Transnet audit recommendations. As some of you may recall, we had audit recommendations from ITAC all the way to 2015. If my memory serves me right, we have closed 2015, and we are now very close to closing 2018. So hopefully that's going to take us into the most recent one. So the team continues to work on that, as also we're continuing to work on our different department assessments. The next one that we'll be putting out to do an assessment is on the HR department. And finally, our SANDAG Customer Service Center will be closed Tuesday, January 27 from 8 a.m. to 1:30. And this will be for a staff meeting, and it will be reopening again at 1:30. That concludes my comments.
Very good. Okay, we're going to move to the ARGIS presentation. And I know there have been some questions to and from board members regarding data sharing practices. And there's been some press about ARGIS and compliance with SB 54, which is also known as the California Values Act. So leadership has asked the team to evaluate the situation. Well, it turns out ARGIS is a very complicated system, hence the ARGIS 101 that we're going to be having today. Over the past 45 years, I think it's been in existence, it's worked well. All the agencies fed information about criminal activity into the data system, and they were able to access it. And it was used as agreed upon by all of the agreements that were signed to help ensure public safety. Now there's some questions which we've seen, and the questions are: is it being used in compliance with the agreements and the California Values Act, or is it being shared outside the parameters of SB 54? So we're going to have the presentation. Tony Ray will give us a detailed presentation. It'll be 15 to 20 minutes long. You'll probably have some questions, but first we're going to go to public comment after Tony's. Write your questions down, and then we're going to go to questions and comments together. While this is a discussion only item, my guess is the board will want to give some direction for next steps. So I'm pretty sure where we're going to land is to ask our general counsel to untangle the state law and the JPA agreements and the MOUs that we're going to hear about, and let us know what avenues the board has to ensure compliance with state law by all ARGIS members. So at this point, if Teddy has, where's Teddy? If Teddy has anything to add, and then I'll turn it over.
Good morning, everyone on the board. Yes, we will be providing a memo. I'll be providing a memo to each of you regarding what Chair Huebner has requested. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. I just saw, Mayor Jones, did you have a question before we go into this about
I
another
did.
topic? Yeah.
Yes, I just had a quick question for Mario. When he gave his report, he was talking about the planning groups and that there was an educational grant that we had applied for, but I didn't know what that was for. I just.
Yeah,
wondered.
there is an educational grant that's available right now. And with the discussions with Caltrans, with the county and the planning groups, we all agreed that that was an opportunity, that grant. I think it's from the California Safety Board, but I will have to check on that. It's to basically do education on the speed limits and even provide potentially funding for enhanced patrolling on the SR 67. Again, we haven't gotten the grant. We are going to pursue it, but it's to have a campaign educating people or reminding them of their better driving habits, the speed limits. You know, once we get the grant, we'll kind of set up a work plan with all the interested parties. But we're trying to look at State Route 67, not just like a capital project improvement or an operations improvement. It's trying to look at it holistically from all angles. And an education campaign and enhanced reinforcement is one of those angles.
So if we do end up getting that, maybe too, what would happen in an evacuation and that they need to download the apps and everything, because I feel like Genesis, Protect, and then also Watch Duty is what I always suggest people to look at. But maybe that part of it to bring in because it's safety. And then if we do end up getting that money, that it'll be that part of it too.
Yeah, for sure. And we will work with Caltrans, and Ann as the Traffic Operations Center at Caltrans is the one responsible State Route 67 and looking at all those elements.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Chair.
And Supervisor, is this, you're up here for the, okay, got it, not for now. All right, Mario, did you have anything before I turn it over to Tony?
I think you hit all the marks there. I think to put it in my words, you know, ARGIS has worked well. It's in adding, or it gets all the local law enforcement data, and it puts it in a database and makes it available for local law enforcement. The agreements and the joint powers agreement, as well as the MOU for data sharing, were set in a time of that everybody trusted everybody. I think there's a point right now that some people may not feel that full trust. It all depends on each individual, and we need to look at how we can align and be proactive to be aligned with today's world, right? And be in compliance with state law. So we are being very proactive on trying to figure this out. As we even talked to some local law enforcement agencies, they were also trying to figure out where we were with all the agreements. So that's most probably we may have to go and revisit our joint powers agreement and calibrate it to today. But you know, this is everything is a journey, and I think today is presenting to the board what ARGIS is, what ARGIS does, and then the team and our general counsel will come out with a memo with even more untangling the agreements and maybe even areas of opportunity.
Tony.
Thank you. Good morning, Board. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about ARGIS. It's something I'm very passionate about.
Could you move the mic closer to you, please, Tony?
Sure, I can. I'll try to talk louder too.
There you go. Thanks.
Just say you're doing it again and I'll talk louder if I start getting quiet. I appreciate ARGIS is the Automated Regional Justice Information System. The acronym is ARGIS. And I hope today to give you a very high level overview, maybe 15 minutes or so of what ARGIS is, what ARGIS does. And we'll talk about our mission, our core systems, our governance, and what we believe is the value to the region. And I'll say that I've been the director for 3 years as ARGIS, and before that I was a customer of ARGIS for 31 years when I was with the County of San Diego. It is an entity this is our 50th year starting here in existence. But ARGIS was created as a grant project. Here it is. As a grant project in 1976. And the idea was there was a City of San Diego crime prevention specialist, a probation officer, and a sheriff's juvenile detective. And they were working juvenile crimes. And they realized that agencies didn't really share information. You only had what was available to you. And the way to get the information was you had to know someone in a different agency, and then that person had to be available. So they started working on how can we share information? And they created this concept. And by 1980, it became a very popular grant project. And it became formally a joint powers agency to the California Government Code, where all the local agencies would share criminal justice information, and through ARGIS would share that back to all of the agencies that we had. The purpose of ARGIS is to collect and share criminal justice information to support investigations, analysis, officer safety, and decision-making in the regional law enforcement agencies. The mission is to get the right information to the right people at the right time. And that information has to be accurate. It has to be fast, because when people are asking for it, they're usually working in the field. And it has to be on a secure network. And that's basically the mission and the purpose. I do want to say that ARGIS was originally housed in the city of San Diego from 1976 until 2004. And in 2004, the administration of ARGIS moved from the city of San Diego to SANDAG because the 19 entities represented here, the cities and the county, were the same at that time. When it gets to the core functions, we have a number of things that we do. The primary overarching main service we provide is being a data sharing warehouse. We started in 1980, and the reports were on lined paper. You know, the computers weren't what they are today. And ARGIS would share, people would send information, ARGIS would share it back. ARGIS has evolved over the years now with computers that we do automatic. When someone in a law enforcement agency hits enter for a report, it automatically spins off. As soon as it's approved, it goes right to ARGIS, and ARGIS can share that with everybody else in the region. So that's the absolute #1 thing that we do. We collect and share information. And in the region, I would say that there's no other, outside of San Diego, there's no other entity that does what ARGIS does, where every agency in the county shares information to be shared by every agency in the county. And then the chiefs and sheriffs get to meet once a month to discuss the oversight, the overview of what ARGIS does and how we operate. So that is really the #1 primary focus that we have. #2 is the network. Our network has to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days. Now we have a team of 20 people. We have people that are on call because law enforcement officers work 24 hours a day. So we have a helpline in case the network goes down or an application is not working or someone is asking for help with the password. We'll answer the phone and we'll help that person out and get the network going. And it'll either be there's Cammie over here. She's the voice that you hear in the middle of the night if you were to call her at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And she's very pleasant when that happens. And then she will wake up the proper network engineer or the proper developer to make sure that the officer in the field can get what they need at that time. We also have a reporting center, and the reporting center is where you can create custom reports. And an example would be when I was the captain of Santee Sheriff Station. If I wanted to know how many auto thefts were in the town center area during a 3-month period, I could use ARGIS, and ARGIS could create, I could craft my report through ARGIS, and ARGIS would send that report right back to me instantaneously, and I would have that information at my fingertips. We do software development, and this is where I think one of the greatest values that ARGIS has to the region. We could just buy over-the-counter software programs and provide them to local law enforcement agencies, or your agencies could do that. But those software programs will provide what those software programs provide. In terms of ARGIS, we work for 50 years. We work with the agencies, with the analysts, with the detectives, the ground pounders and the leaders. And we try to find out what is it that an agency needs, and then our developers will create a product to serve those needs, which I don't think an over-the-counter developer can do. I know that right now, the current trend in law enforcement applications is coming to San Diego and saying, we're just like ARGIS, only better. But I don't think that they are. But if we don't continue to develop and stay on top of technology, we'll become like Kodak. We can't just sit on our laurels. We have to absolutely absolutely move with the times. We're also an information exchange, and that means if you have a number of detectives in different agencies working robbery, we can combine all the robbery information and work with those detectives through a robbery working group. There's a number of task forces in the region. There's a narcotics task force, an auto theft task force, many task forces, and they can get information from the region directly from ARGIS for the entire region and not just their agency right there. We also do data validation. This is probably one of the most important things we do. ARGIS receives a lot, and I'll show you a slide on this in a little bit, but ARGIS takes data from many different agencies and it comes in different forms. And we put it in the same format and then we share it back so everybody can read it. It's almost like a universal translator where we take information in and put it in a common language so that people can understand what it is that they're getting back and do their investigation and analysis. We have a regional governance process, and that means we're not a solo independent, we're not a vendor, we're not a solo where I just make all the decisions. Our governance structure has representations from all 18 of your cities in the county of San Diego. We do legislative compliance, and we don't write legislature, but we host a platform where information on legislation can be stored so that if a law comes out and it affects law enforcement in the region, we'll host that law and make it available to the people so that it'll be at their fingertips if for some reason they don't have that information. We also do policy development. And when I say policy development, every time ARGIS puts out a new product, and we're doing that right now, we're testing something right now. Before we can actually make it active for the region to use, we have to have a regional policy on how that will use, when and when not, who and who not, and et cetera. ARGIS is also the, we call it the repository for all the local law enforcement agencies when all of the police departments and the sheriff agree on a pursuit policy, or different policies that may happen in law enforcement. They're housed in ARGIS so that people can always find it. It won't get lost. It's not just one agency. Every agent can see it that way. We also have a public facing website where members of the public can look at sanitized data to find out what's been happening in their community. It's a mapping. I'll show you a screenshot of that in just a little bit. And in terms of innovation and national model, there is, to the best of my knowledge, and there is no other entity in the United States where everybody in the county, every agency in the county shares their crime data with one entity so that everybody else can share that. There's been a number of attempts to do that. But yesterday we were doing interviews yesterday, talking to an analyst from outside of this county. And he said, again, today, he would have to have a friend in another agency to get the information he wanted, and that friend would have to be available. Where in ARGIS, you can just log on and get what you need at that time. And there's nobody. We're also recognized by the International Association of Chiefs of Police, which is the largest police association in the world. Actually, it's a worldwide association, and they have a ARGIS Pam Scanlon Award for excellence in investigation. And ARGIS, I would say, has been a national model for probably over 30, 35 years in terms of information sharing. And this is my brief overview. Just tell me I'm talking too long and give me the sign and I'll move on to the slide if you think it's too long in the area. But I like talking about ARGIS. It's what I do and I appreciate it. In terms of membership, we have 65 member agencies that are our customers. 19 of those are charter member agencies, and the charter member agencies are agencies that signed that first GPA in 1980, and that would be members of the 18 cities in the county of San Diego. And those will forever be the charter member agencies. Charter member agencies are voting members when things happen here. And then we have a number of other customers that purchase the service. We have over 6,000 individual users in those 65 agencies, and nobody can access ARGIS unless they've passed a law enforcement background process or work for a law enforcement agency or work for ARGIS or work for SANDAG's Criminal Justice Division. Nobody else is allowed to have that kind of access. In terms of custom applications, Surfers would be probably the most popular application we have. It's a state, regional, federal enterprise system. And what that does is that allows people to query information on crimes, arrests, citations one time. And what we do is we link about 7 databases on the backside. And instead of an officer having to make 7 different log in, do a query, log out, then log in, make query and log out, they log in one time and they get access to all that information at their fingertips. Number 2 is the eQuery, and that's basically a data tool, a data extraction tool. If you, the mayor, council member, whoever it may be, would want to know what is all the narcotics activity or what is all the activity, alcohol activity within a quarter mile of the specific location, you would ask your chief, and your chief's analyst would use the eQuery tool to do that. And these are all created by ARGIS analysts. I'm sorry, ARGIS developers to solve the issues locally. And this is local data that we have in here. We have a Be on the Lookout bulletin. And this is an email system where If an officer is looking, if there's a bank robbery and you have a picture of a suspect and maybe their vehicle, they would craft a document saying, be on the lookout for this person, and contact investigator so-and-so. And that can only be shared without ARGIS within their agency by themselves. What ARGIS does is we have a central BOLO location where people will provide those BOLOs to us. And then everybody in the region has access to see who's looking for who, and they're categorized, and there's a way to search them. So if you're looking for robbery, you can search the robbery BOLOs. If you're looking for auto theft, you can search the auto theft BOLOs. What we do is we magnify the power through technology for people to see beyond their region in terms of what's going on. The officer notification system is a different version of that. And the way it works is if a deputy in Vista was looking for Tony Ray to be as a suspect, witness, victim, contact information, whatever the reason may be, they would put it in the officer notification system. And if a police officer in El Cajon happened to contact Tony Ray and run through the system, they would get an immediate alert that an officer, a deputy in Vista is looking for them, and they would connect each other and help continue the investigation. So that's what the officer notification system is. And then we have a crime mapping dashboard on the law enforcement side that lets agencies map data, not just their own, but beyond their own data, to see if there's a crime trend in their city, or if they're just a part of a crime trend that's going beyond their justification or a specific case that they're working in the area. This would be the Surfers application. This is the #1 application that we have. It's on desktop, used for desktop and mobile devices. And it was rolled out at the end of 2017, 2018. So in 2018, 2019, the usage was lower than it is right now because we were perfecting the system. In 2020 and 21, those were the heavy COVID years where policing was different. It was a lot less proactive, a lot more reactive because of what was happening with COVID. Until 2023, then you see the numbers are going up because policing was getting back to where it was. And then in 2024 and 2025, that seems to be where policing is back to the way people police, the way it was before COVID. And you can see that we have about 1.142 million hits in when I say hits, that's how many times people actually use the system, entries. In 24 and 25, the difference is there's only 40 differences between 24 and 25, but that is our absolute most popular. That's what people use the most out of ARGIS, because they can get so many databases with just one query in terms of what they're doing. This is data validation. And if you see the screen up here, we'll look at a Coronado and El Cajon and a district attorney entry. You'll see that Coronado might enter BLKCAM, and you'll see that El Cajon might enter BKCAMRY, and then the district attorney may enter BLAKCAMY. And when I say the agency, that's the officer or the detective entering the acronym or whatever it is. So we put that through our data validation process so that everybody knows that we're talking about a black Camry. And if you look on the screen, you'll see that we have 38 different validation fields for color. There's over 1,800 validation fields for a model of a vehicle. And if you look on the left, you'll see that we have over 50 interfaces to receive data to come into ARGIS. We have over 200 validation tables and over 156,000 fields. And these are obviously automated because it would take an awful long time for one person to read all of that. But we take the data from the different agencies, we validate it, put it into that one common language, and then send it back out so people can search it quickly and know what they're getting. They're getting a Camry or they're getting a something else in that area. In terms of reporting, ARGIS manages reporting of all regional crime statistics reporting to the California Incident-Based Reporting System, meaning all the local law enforcement agencies use ARGIS to report their crime data to the state. And then the state, through the California Incident-Based Reporting System, sends that data to the National Incident-Based Reporting System, which is where you would get the national statistics on crime. ARGIS also supports a number of different types of mandatory reporting, like domestic violence, regional liquor licensing, arrest and citations, and many colleges and universities will have to do a Clery Act report. There's many people that are required to do reports on crime data, and they will contact ARGIS. These non-law enforcement agencies will not get the detailed data that your agents do, but they get the sanitized data on how many of these things happen on the university grounds or within the university grounds, how many of these things happen. And we provide that. There's a fee for that, but we provide that for the people, and it's pretty hard for them to get that anywhere else in San Diego. So we're supporting the community. These are our data portals. We have one. The one I've been talking about pretty much is the law enforcement portal, where you have law enforcement sensitive data and only people that have passed a law enforcement background can access. But we also have a public data website. And if you Google ARGIS, ARGIS, it'll pop right up. You can see us here, and you have the ability to see a number of links, like to Megan's Law or with Crime Stoppers and different links that we have, and you can have a mapping dashboard that will show you what's going on in your region. Let's look on the screen on the top right. In January of last year. And if you had the interactive map, you could actually log on to each of the dots and find out what was the crime, when did it happen, how long ago did it happen, what's going on in the region. But SANDAG also has an open data portal that has criminal justice information, sanitized information for the public. And ARGIS provides data to SANDAG for that. It's very sophisticated. And if you see on the bottom, that's a slide from the SANDAG open data portal, where you can get reports and analysis on the crime data that you would only receive from the ARGIS portal up in the area. So that was my commercial for SANDAG's open data portal. Okay. ARGIS has a regional trainer, one regional trainer, and this is a grant-funded program. And the focus of this trainer is to make sure that new agents, new officers, whoever is using ARGIS understand how to use the suite. I was a deputy sheriff for 31 years, and my experience is that the training officers in the field will teach, because we have a number of applications, their favorite applications to their trainees. And the ARGIS trainer ensures that all people coming into the system have a total knowledge of all the things we have, and then we can hone in on what they're actually going to use and teach them how to do that. And we do classes at the sheriff's computer lab because it's regionally located, or we'll travel to the actual agencies and do the classes, or we'll do them online hosted. We're in the process of creating a learning management system so that people that may not be able to make it to a class can still get the training or the refresh training. And this is important because it's very difficult when a patrol team is staffing 8 or 10 or 12 people to let somebody go for 5 or 6 hours. Our class is 3 hours, but to let someone travel to the location, attend the training, and then travel back, you may lose 5 to 6 hours of productivity on a 12-hour shift. So we're trying to have in-person, online, and online unhosted training so that people can actually get that and put their officers back in the field as quick as possible. ARGIS in the cloud. So right now we're 100% on-premise operation. Meaning that we're not in the cloud, but we're moving to the cloud, and we have to move to the cloud because one, that's where technology is taking operations, and two, it's supposed to improve the system performance. People told me it would be cheaper, but I find nothing cheaper about going into the cloud, and that's just my personal opinion, because while you have less equipment and less connections, the people that run the cloud make you pay for every time you put something into the cloud, but it is a lot faster, and I think it's going to be a little safer and a little more reliable in what we're doing. And to understand the gravity of this thing, we're going to have to move or make connections for our current system. And this is what our current system looks like. We have 2 physical data centers, one here in San Diego and one in Phoenix at the National Law Enforcement Telecommunications System. We have 3 environments that work in. One is the production environment where people log in and they get the information. A second is a development where we create things, and then a test environment where we see if it works. And we have a separate development because we don't want to break the production environment, and we have a separate test environment because we don't want to break the development environment. We have a number of physical host servers. We have approximately 200 virtual host servers. We have a number of storage arrays. We have dozens of firewalls, routers, switches to support interconnectivity. We have approximately 60 agency independent circuits to connect us with the different agencies so they can have access, because we connect on our side and the agencies also connect on their side, and our technicians work with the agencies to make sure those connections work. We have approximately 1,000 mobile devices that we support and a number of virtual private network appliances for on-demand connectivity. And that's on premise. And we're going to create that also in the internet. And we're also working on a, what do you call it? I forget the actual word, but if something goes down, we'll have automatic backup systems. So if the web goes, the cloud goes down, we have the backup cloud to work. If they're redundant, that's a good word, redundancy, for my former boss in the corner over there. Thank you, sir. So right now we have that for we're building that right now for our on-premise situation. We'll have it in the cloud, and we're gonna end up with a hybrid situation, partly on-premise, mostly into the cloud. But if something goes down, our officers should never know, our customers should never know that went down, because the backup system, the redundant system, will kick back in. And that's where we're heading right now. In terms of ARGIS funding, ARGIS is funded basically through 2 sources, membership dues and grants. The membership dues pay the operating costs. The grants pay for our research and development. Our budget's approximately $10 million on average. $7.5 million of that are operational costs. $2.5 million of that would be a series of grants that we're basically working 3 grant seasons in a row. As one drops off, another one comes on. And that's where we improve and expand our operations that we have. The budget the fees are determined by a fee structure that was approved by the SANDAG Board of Directors in 2023. And that is based on the number of users an agency has and the population. And we have three types of members. We have the charter member agencies, the participating member agencies, and the contributing members. And the contributing member agencies are not charter member agencies, but they will provide some data, but not the volume that the charters do. So if you look to the right, you'll see like if you have 1 to 9 active users, your cost is going to be 40,000 or 30,000 if you're providing data for the region to use. And it goes down that way. And that's how, and we have, like I say, 19 charter member agencies and 46 contributing participating member agencies. And this is a brief overview. We make house calls. If anybody would like me and my staff to come out to your locations, your councils, community groups, whatever, your offices, your staff members, we'll come out and talk about this in detail and share this information with you. When it comes down to the governance structure, well, the SANDAG Board of Directors are responsible for the overall governance of SANDAG. The Public Safety Committee in most areas functions as the ARGIS governing body. The Chiefs and Sheriffs Management Committee provides ARGIS direction on operations and makes recommendations to the Public Safety Committee. And the Business Working Group meets monthly to discuss issues within SANDAG, like surfaces, this isn't working, or this is taking too low, or we need new data inside there, or new policies, new procedures, new products. And they make recommendations to SANDAG. We also have, if you see on the slide, we have some ad hoc working groups, like the technical working group will only be alive when we're testing a new product or service. Then we bring in members from other agencies, not just us, to see how does this work? Is this what you're looking for? What's good? What's bad? What do we need to make better? And we use the input from the input from the agencies to make the product better. The National Incident-Based Reporting Working Group is one that is active right now, as we're having a difference of opinion on how we report crime. And we're doing with the state, we're trying to work within the state guidelines and get the guidance on how we can report this and how we can report that to make sure that what we're reporting is 100% active. So we put a group together with members of the region being part of that group to work with the state on this issue. The Business Working Group, though, I want you to know, it has representatives from the 19 charter member agencies, all 18 cities and the county. The Sheriff's Management Committee is made up of all the chiefs, the sheriff, probation chief, and a couple others, and everybody reports up that way. Oh, what did I do? Here we go. Governing policies. We have there's a lot of documents that determine what ARGIS can and can't do and how we operate, but there's 5 primary governing documents. And here they are. Board Policy 26 defines the role of the Public Safety Committee in advising the board. It outlines the governance, subcommittees, and operational procedures, and it details the authority, including the approval of financial transactions up to $500,000 and the oversight of ARGIS operations. Board Policy number 2 explains the composition of the Public Safety Committee, and it covers the appointment process, the quorum requirements, the attendance expectations, and highlights the roles of the ex officio members. ARGIS was created as a joint powers agency, and the joint powers agreement defines the relationship between ARGIS and SANDAG, which administers ARGIS. It also defines the ARGIS structure, the types of members in the fee structure, and details many operational practices that we have. The ARGIS data sharing MOU explains how ARGIS is a data service provider to public safety agencies, and this is important because while a lot of information is shared into ARGIS, ARGIS doesn't own that data. That data belongs to the agencies that share that. We're a service provider, and our service is sharing data in that area. And this document explains how it can be shared, when it can be shared, when it cannot be shared. Then the California Law Enforcement Telecommunications Policies, Procedures, and Protocols, or the CLETS PPP, is a California Department of Justice document which explains who can access CLETS data, which ARGIS shares and transmits. So that is my brief high-level overview. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And again, say that if you'd like us to come out, me and my staff, several over there, they're the 2 hands, the pretty faces. They're more than just pretty faces over there. They're there.
Thanks, Tony. Mario has something to add.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I think a couple of comments, additional comments. Once SB 54, the California Values Act, was approved, one of the items in that act says that the criminal data cannot be used for immigration purposes. At that time, correct me if I'm wrong here, Tony, a lot of the database was scrubbed to eliminate or not have any immigration information. So when there's a pool on Tony or on Mario, they won't know if our citizenships, our status, immigration status, or any of that type of information. So that was one point of clarity that I wanted to put in. Another point of clarity is that also we do not own the data. We just move the data that is sent by the law enforcement agencies. So we don't have insight of that data. We're just moving boxes, imagine like that, but we don't go inside the box and analyze that data. Each local agency owns their data. So if I would like to know something specific at the data, I can't. We're not permitted, we're not allowed. So that's a limitation we also have, or a boundary. I don't know if I stated that correctly, Tony.
It was a great elevator speech. Thank you.
And so those are two elements that I think were important to also put it in the perspective for the conversation.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to public comments and then we'll go to the board. Michael, how many do we have?
Yeah, if you're online, please raise your hand now. We have 2 in person, and then we have about 7 online, Chair. We'll go with just a quick statement regarding the comments that for the purposes of civility and an orderly meeting, we ask that you refrain from using loud, threatening, profane, or abusive language. And per our board policy, the amount of time allowed for each verbal public is determined based on the number of agenda items. And this allows us to hear from as many people as possible and to complete our business while we have a quorum. And that's why it's 2 minutes today. And we'll go with Truth, followed by Cesar Javier.
Apparently that is pretty boy noy over there. Okay. If you guys wanted to know all of this ahead of time, you could have just watched the public safety meetings like I've been participating in. And if this expensive data is such a public service, why isn't it free? You could just use AI and you could save $7 million a year. I've also learned that ARGIS data is only as good as the state manipulates it. Example, the state recently reclassified crimes and now gambling is considered a crime against society while rape is not. Officers also now struggle to know if a suspect previously used a weapon as part of a past crime, which obstructs justice. Typical corrupt state of California, propping up the criminals at the expense of the victims. I have a request that ARGIS start tracking data on how many criminals are in public office. Also, how many criminals released into our country, county, and state during 2020 to 2025. I would like ARGIS to ignore state law and follow the Constitution, to share the info on violent criminals with ICE so we can deport all of them, especially if they enter the country illegally and then ran for public office, because there are some who did that in this room. Obfuscation of immigration data is actually obstruction of justice. I don't care what you feel about it, because there are many victims in this county who have died because this state would not share the data. How dare you? I would also like some updates on the Public Safety Committee, because they're costing the most amount of money. They're the shortest meeting with the fewest attendees, and they have the least results. They haven't presented anything to you guys. They haven't changed anything. So I want to see a change on that. And especially if ARGIS's budget keeps going up by hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I would like to see more cops on the streets instead of data. Because about 2 days after I brought up transportation safety issues such as hit and runs, a 6-year-old was killed by a merciless hit and run driver. Where is the data to force a change in the transportation culture that SANDAG promotes, including biking and transit?
Thank you. Next is Cesar Javier, followed by Andrea Eving. The topic at hand is ARGIS 101.
Thank you, SANDAG. Thank you, Uncle Sam. Let's do it. This is a tool for humans, but we cannot exchange this to the living person behind the technology. Garbage in, garbage out. Pardon my Filipino language. In my ARGIS, sir, I heard the name Lakaba supporting this tribal effort something a while ago. Very effective. I heard it. And I think that's the ARGIS that we would like to find out. And this is a assistive tool for audit, performance, and financial. which is the core of all this, the how much and where is the money, Mr. Mayor Gloria. I think ARGIS is applicable here. But the main heavy thing here is the man behind operating this system. It should go through ARGIS, several stages, if my concept is understood. It's only Mr. Lacaba, sir, it's only a suggestion from lowly victims of toxic gases. You approve. The city of San Diego approved. We need ARGIS to help them investigate. And also those criminals, crimes against society, crimes against person, crimes against property. My city, in relation to ARGIS, should go through ARGIS from the mayor down to the 11 elected officials. We need it. Let's go, do it, SANDAG. But the question is how much and who will bear the cost?
Thank you. Next is Andrea Ebbing online, followed by Paul the Bold. Please know that topic is ARGIS 101.
Hi, this is Andrea Ebbing, and I just wanted to comment on the effectiveness of the ARGIS system, because let's talk about the reality of it. Our district attorney, Summer Steffen, and her federal judge, Dana Sabrow, most certainly share their home system, and she most certainly manipulates the data and mutilates records for sure. And if the system is managed on site, we can't trust that one tiny little bit, because I actually have my own server at the DA's office. I have my very own server, and they wanted to threaten me with it to put fear into me, but I'm not afraid. I know the reason they do that is to isolate my information that's being reported from all the federal investigations they're under now, and not the ones under her federal judge husband, Dana Sabrow. If the ARGIS system was so effective, how did it not prevent the abduction of my children who were driven across the country state lines on a permanently suspended license by a man who strangled me on video with blood everywhere, not even denying he did it? And if he had access, if law enforcement had access to the entire database nationwide, why didn't they see his strangulation murder investigation that took place in Massachusetts, in the town next to the town in which he abducted my daughters? And if ARGIS wasn't being used for immigration purposes, why did Antonio Guzman get picked up in Bonita? He's married to an American citizen, he has a California driver's license, and he gets picked up in Bonita. He gets detained in Otay. He gets flown to Oaxaca or some country he's never been to. Okay, why did he have his California driver's license cut up in front of him and thrown at him and told that it didn't matter? He doesn't need it anymore. And then he paid for an attorney, and then they opened the door and ICE detained him. I know why. Deport people and illegally take people that are actually citizens or residents of the United States is appalling. And that's why we see the increase in those searches. If my last name was Escobar, which might be one day,
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Paul the Bold, followed by Aaron Grassi.
Paul Bold. I remember Tony Ray, the ARGIS man in charge, from his time as acting sheriff, where he always seemed confused and pretending not to see things like use of excessive force. Hi, Tony. Glad things are going better now. The presentation makes it clear that strict limits need to be put on data sharing and AI operations at ARGIS. Tony, the cloud has been hacked so often, it is not safer. There may be less incidents, but who knows where your data might end up. So now Tony's in charge of some of SANDAG's records. Hope they aren't based on ridiculously old data or silly estimates like some SANDAG stuff I've seen, because these records go to 65 local, state, and federal agencies, 5,000 users, including the National Incident-Based Reporting System. And we know that some ICE officers, by the way, who might access the system, have poor training. The threat of spying and misuse is real. In a recent statement to KPBS, A CBB spokesperson said agents use Argus in the vast majority of their criminal cases and said the database improves the agency's cooperation with, quote, partner agencies, end quote, enhancing interoperability, as the report says, means tinkering with data. In all cases I've seen, the staff report says Argus, the automated regional justice information system, receives and standardizes data from 11 law enforcement agencies and the sheriff. 12 agencies. There are more
Thank you,
county
Paul. Your
cities
time has
than that.
expired. Next is Aaron Grassi, followed by Blair Beekman.
Good morning. My name is Erin Cermoto Grassi. I'm the Associate Director at Alliance San Diego. Alliance San Diego is strongly opposed to DHS agencies being given access to the ARGIS database without a warrant. We are deeply concerned about the type of information and reports they're able to have access to, including reports that contain identifying information about victims and witnesses. And while this may not include specific information on immigration status, it could include other information that could potentially identify an individual. This includes information on driver's license, such as AB60 driver's licenses, or other types of ID, including matricula, or other information such as jobs, workplaces, things like that. This puts witnesses and victims at risk and erodes community trust in law enforcement. Public safety is dependent on community trust in law enforcement. When witnesses and victims are afraid to contact local law enforcement because they fear they may be at risk of deportation, this makes all of us less safe. That is why Philadelphia chose to stop giving DHS agencies access to their PARS database in 2018, 8 years ago. DHS agencies have shown over the years a long history of abuse and impunity, which included having illegal cover-up units to cover up use of force incidents. Over the last year, we have witnessed these agencies show a blatant disregard for the rule of law and the Constitution, arresting individuals without warrants, assaulting, detaining, and killing individuals on the streets. At this moment in time when our communities are under attack, it is critical that SANDAG protect the civil and human rights of San Diegans. It is time for SANDAG to stop allowing DHS agencies access to ARGIS.
Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Patricia Mondragon.
Hi, thank you, Blair Beekman. Thank you incredibly that Sandag, people realize that it's important to have Argus public accountability at this time. Really nice of you. You do this from time to time. You have a series of Argus items for a month at a time. I hope you keep it up. Thank you immensely. You had a Argus item last week at Public Safety that was questionable. They rushed the public process and presentation process. And in their presentation basically said they're going to be working towards how they can work more clearly with state and federal agencies so they can have a more clear path of information sharing. That's a problem. We are trying to really seriously address a federal administration offering practices that should really be questionable. And we should be agreement at SANDAG that they are questionable what they're doing at the federal level. I'm not saying he has a purpose at the federal level of the Trump administration. We have to have safeguards in place. We have to have principles in place. And that's what the future of Argus should be about. It was said, we don't want to turn Argus into a Kodak moment. We have to be building a future that's a sustainable future. We're in a one-time shot of basically militarized artillery fire with the current administration. That's not a future. We have to be building a sustainable technology future. Argus has to be a part of that. You have to be considering San Diego Law Enforcement Coordination Center, CLETS. Those are two agencies that can work with federal and state agencies. Argus has to create a good standard like Oakland leaving flock. We can do those good standard work in San Diego. We have to be talking about this subject openly now. And you're trying to do that. Please continue such good efforts. It's important that you have these conversations. It was not talked about in the presentation here. We have to have these conversations about our federal agencies. Good luck.
Thank you. Next is Patricia Mondragon, followed by Consuelo. Patricia, you seem to be self-muted.
Thank you. Patricia Mondragon, Regional Policy Manager for Alliance San Diego. We have serious concerns about both access to and data security within the ARGIS database. In 2023, The Department of Homeland Security had more than 500 federal agents which had access to ARGIS, including Border Patrol. And we're curious to know how many federal agents have access today. That access is also self-monitored by individual agents with no meaningful mechanism for departmental oversight or accountability. I disagree with Mr. Aroso. We know ARGIS contains highly sensitive information that can easily be used to identify and flag individuals as undocumented by a federal agent with authorized access. It also includes police reports containing the personal information of victims and witnesses, information that can be used by DHS agencies or federal agencies doing immigration enforcement to target people for deportation. This creates a chilling effect on community members who may otherwise report crimes, serve as witnesses, or seek help from law enforcement. One of the most significant weaknesses of this system is that it relies on agencies to police themselves. That is unacceptable for a database that stores an immense amount of personal data on all San Diegans and visitors, especially at a time that the federal government is violating laws around our rights and our data. Self-regulation is not a safeguard, it is a vulnerability. Local government, including SANDAG, has an obligation to serve and protect all residents regardless of immigration status. Continuing to allow federal immigration enforcement agents to access ARGIS is dangerous. It exposes community members to harm and undermines local efforts to build safety and trust. Trust in law enforcement is fundamental to public safety. Without trust, there is no public safety, and we are seeing that every single day.
And our last public comment is Consuelo.
Okay, Consuelo here. Let's see, linking dozens of agencies into one system that tracks, stores, and shares people's information across jurisdictions. Yeah, this is not about public safety. This is about power, control, and behavioral monitoring. When you centralize data, arrests, citations, license plate tracking, field interviews, you create a system where people are no longer treated as human beings, but as data points, profiles, patterns, risks to be managed. ARGIS does not primarily serve the people of this county. Its greatest value is not local benefit, it's interoperability, its muscle, its compatibility with larger systems of surveillance and reporting that move far beyond San Diego. Everything is framed as convenience. Everything is framed as modernization. Everything is framed as protection. But when you're building, what you are building is a digital fishbowl. This is not moving with the times, as Tony said earlier. This is moving in lockstep with global surveillance models, the same models behind 15-minute cities where movement, access, and behavior are monitored and managed under the guise of efficiency and safety. You say it's about benefit to the people, but what you're creating looks a lot like prison cells, where freedom exists only within approved boundaries. More data does not equal more safety, more surveillance does not equal more trust, and more centralized control has never resulted in healthier, freer societies. And history clearly shows us this. Okay, so San Diego County does not need to function like what they say at Davos. We need not systems aligned with the UN agenda or World Economic Forum philosophies. We need transparency, we need restraint and respect for human dignity, because once surveillance infrastructure is built, it is never rolled back, it only expands. And that brings me to this. History will remember not how
expired. That concludes our public comment on this item, Chair.
Thank you, Michael. Let's go to board comments. We'll start with Supervisor Aguirre.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to thank staff for all your work, and especially for coordinating with my staff, answering all the questions. I want to say that this is obviously an extremely important issue, especially in the context of what we're seeing every day. We need to make sure that we are governing in an effective, transparent, and efficient way. We need to be sure that we're doing it fiscally, legally, and morally responsibly. I want to be very clear about where I'm coming from. I am firm in my commitment to the true exercise of responsible public safety. And as a member of this board, I take seriously our responsibility to assess programs, governance structures, and operations to ensure they align with the values and expectations of the public we serve. Oversight does not stop where things get complicated. In fact, that is precisely where it must begin. This is especially true in the current moment when many families across our region are living with real fear. Fear of being targeted, fear of being separated from their loved ones, and fear of being abducted or worse. In that context, clarity, transparency, and accountability are not optional. They are essential to ensuring the safety and dignity of all of our constituents and residents. So in that vein, I'd like to ask a few questions, if you don't mind. Does CBP, ICE, Border Patrol, or other DHS components currently have direct or indirect access to ARGIS?
Yes, they do.
What
Let me explain, in terms of ICE ERO, the enforcement, ICE ERO does not. We severed our relationship with them, I think, in 2019. ICE, DHS, HSI, Homeland Security Investigations does have access.
Tony, can you please explain the differences between those two in words, not letters, and also what their responsibilities are?
ICE ERO is ICE's Enforcement Removal Office. And these are the people that you see on television that are conducting the raids, arresting people, engaging in the arrest and deporting of the people, that process. ICE, Homeland Security, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, is an investigative arm of ICE. These are the people that work the ports of entry. And they do the investigations as people coming across. They work on narcotics trafficking, human trafficking, weapons trafficking, agriculture types of crimes, stolen vehicles. They are the people that work the ports of entries, do the investigations for other crimes at that area.
So you're saying that the first one that you described, ERO, is it ERO or IRO?
It's ERO, Enforcement
ERO,
Removal Office.
And we severed relationships with them because they would not sign the agreements.
That's correct. When SB 54 came out, the state said that we could share information as we do with state, local, and federal agencies, but all the agencies that access the data have to agree to abide by SB 54 and the regulations there. And there was a Klutz memo that the Department of Justice sent out that everybody had to sign. The ICE, HSI, Homeland Security Investigations agreed to abide by that. ICE Enforcement Removal Office did not agree to abide by that. So at that time, we actually had a connectivity to ICE with the server. We severed the server connection. We eliminated the connectivity. All those agents were removed from our system. We do not work with that agency, which they're both ICE, but they're two agencies within ICE. As Mario said earlier, we cleaned out our entire database. There's no immigration codes. You won't find the word migrant, immigrant, illegal, anything like that in our system. So it can't be searched to see if anybody was involved in those kinds of things. And I get asked every year to provide access to that agency, and we decline every year.
Thank you, Glenn. Supervisor.
So other than acknowledging or reporting, there are no other enforceable restrictions to ensure that ARGIS is not being used for immigration enforcement purposes?
Well, the authority for oversight, there's two areas. One is the agency, is by definition from the state of California, and the CLETS PPP that I mentioned earlier defines the agency that's using ARGIS to provide oversight for themselves. And then the California Department of Justice also has the authority to do the oversight on these agencies. ARGIS does not do that.
Didn't you mention that the governing board, the board of directors, is who has ultimate oversight of ARGIS?
Well, ultimately, yeah, you have everything that's within this, the SANDAG, and ARGIS part of that. You have oversight of everything that SANDAG touches.
So since we do have governance over ARGIS and auditing capacity and external access issues, why were those never proactively agendized for board discussion outside of the Public Safety Committee? There was one agenda item in September of 2025.
You have to explain that. I don't understand the question.
So issues that we have seen with ARGIS or oversight or auditing or governance have never been agendized by this board of directors outside of the Public Safety Committee?
In the last 3 years, no. As far as I know as long as I've been here, we generally work with the Public Safety Committee as the general governing body for ARGIS, and that's where we bring those issues. But maybe someone who's been here longer than I could answer that question.
I think Supervisor, there hasn't been, to my knowledge, items that come to the board uh, absent the budget, which does come in the entire budget, because there hasn't been a change in the structure or the rules since that time. We can go and check on that, but normally when there's a major change in the structure beyond the responsibilities or the delegations of the Public Safety Committee, then it will be floated. And a good example, like I said, is the budget, right? The budget, when the entire agency budget, the Arches budget is inside of that. But we can come and research that also. What are those elements that are normally said to come to the board of major changes? I think both Tony and me probably will be learning as we're going, doing this research.
And am I correct in assuming that this is not going to be the last time we discuss ARGIS as a full board of directors?
I think as the chair mentioned, she has kind of already provided some guidance. And I think some communication and information will be coming to all of you from general counsel. And I would suspect that this will not be the last time that we will be discussing ARGIS in front of the board.
Yeah, I certainly hope not, because as you said, we just manage all the data, but ultimately we have a responsibility to govern that data and ensure that it is used in a correct way, especially in the context of what we're living right now. And I think it all boils down to public trust, right? And Tony's telling us that this information is being used by one branch of ICE, but not the other. But what we're seeing is no due process. And what we're seeing is violation of the Constitution from this agency. So I think this merits further discussion. And I'll pause there because I'm very interested in hearing what the rest of the board says, and I might come back.
And
Thank you.
Supervisor, that's why we're discussing this today.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Chavez.
Thank you. This is an important topic of conversation, especially now. We are living in unprecedented times, and the systems we built here at SANDAG are based on mutual trust and cooperation among our member cities and other level of government we engage with. ARGIS is a 50-year-old database built on those assumptions. As elected officials, we are put in a position where we, in turn, must act in the best interest of our community to preserve their rights. California State Senate Bill 54 passed in 2017, as was mentioned, prohibits any local agency from sharing personal information with federal immigration enforcement unless the person has been convicted of a violent felony. So my question is SANDAG's ARGIS system currently compliant with SB 54?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. We mentioned as well on slide 11 that ARGIS is in the cloud. But data has to be somewhere physical stored. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Do we possess or own all of the data centers where this information is stored, or is there some portion being stored for us on another organization's computers with us as customers?
ARGIS has its own systems. They're located in the data center at the San Diego County Sheriff's Department's data center, but this our equipment, our network that's hosted there, because we cannot host those types of servers or information in a public building like this where we don't own the building and have ultimate control of that site. Our other area is Phoenix, Arizona. It's the National Law Enforcement Telecommunications System, which is also a secure site. So we have two, and that was created in 2012, long before I came. I don't know why we went there, but that's where the two agencies are. So those are our pieces of equipment in those areas secured by the agencies. And then I would also say the cloud that we're moving to is the California State Sheriff Association Law Enforcement Cloud. It's a law enforcement cloud designed by the state of California's law enforcement agencies, working in conjunction with the FBI and the Federal Bureau of Investigations guidelines as the federal CJIS requirements, Criminal Justice Information Service, outline the rules with which we have to provide security for these types of databases, along with the California Class 1. So we have a cloud that's a law enforcement cloud where we're highlighting, I think it's the most secure cloud that there is out there, and that's why we chose it under the guidelines of the state of California and the federal government.
So I guess my question would also be if it is the case that cities need to investigate outside use of their data. As I was briefed yesterday, would it be possible to receive guidance from the SANDAG General Counsel or other staff as appropriate to guide us in what we are looking for to best determine how our local data is being used? If that use is in the interest of our community and if we are complying with state law.
I will provide guidance within the memo that I'll provide to each of you.
And I would surely, I appreciate that. And I would surely invite you to the city of Chula Vista to make this presentation. This is something that our offices get many, many comments on. And I think this serves the community to give them clarification on what we are and not doing, and have the opportunity to put this on a platform so anyone can have peace of mind and get answers to their questions. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Councilmember Gasterland.
Thank you. Thank you to our Supervisor Aguirre and to Councilmember Chavez, Deputy Mayor Chavez, for these questions. They're really important. So I want to add a couple of technical questions that I hope will help shed light on some of what they're asking about. What caught my attention is eQuery. So these are prepackaged queries built by the developers of the ARGIS system to extract data. Could you tell us more about how many eQueries there are, who can run them? Does the output come out in the form of downloadable tables? Do these then become data that the entity or person asking the query can turn around and use to compute on their own? For example, data mining, looking for patterns, looking for recurrences. You know, once you get the data out of ARGIS through an eQuery, that's when it could become particularly dangerous.
I'm going to try to answer all those questions at the same time. So those are that application was created by ARGIS developers, the ability to do that. And you can set a standard query to provide a report every week or every month, or you can have a query that you use one time for a specific case. The idea is the analyst or the investigator from a law enforcement agencies is looking for information. They create the query and then they get the information and they use it for law enforcement purposes. And the results of that query resides with the people who made that query. So if in your city, if the sheriff's department were to do a query, it would be housed with the sheriff's department in there. That is not something that goes public or that can be shared in terms of that information. It's just a tool that's used to support an investigation that's going on at the time.
But the results of the query do come out as data that resides locally on the platform of the entity or person that asked the query.
Right, but they get the results, so they would have the report that came out of that query. Yeah. So while the data would be housed in ARGIS, the report that resulted from the query, they would have on their computer, obviously, when it comes out.
So what I would want to know, and perhaps this is for Mario as well as you, is of the e-queries that exist, how many generate data dumps that are then tables that can be used for follow-up aggregate analysis on individualized data? So that's the question, and I doubt that you have that answer right now. So that's for the future.
That is a great question, and I will answer that one in the future. I know it's recorded, so I won't lose it.
Yes. And then the question that goes with this is, is ARGIS a data portal where the queries go to the platform that is processing the queries and then divvies up the queries out to the individual places where the data is stored remotely and then gets pieces of answers back and then aggregates the answer? Data portal? Or is ARGIS a data warehouse where on a continuous basis, all this data that's in other places comes together into this centralized location that is ARGIS, and thus ARGIS is the amalgamation of all that individualized data, which may or may not be validated or harmonized when it comes to the centralized location?
It's a part of both of yours, but primarily the second, the data comes in disparate. And then we do the data cleaning and put it in the system. It's not queried in the raw form when it comes in. It's queried after it's been validated, and then it goes back to the agencies. So we are a warehouse where the data resides because people are sending it to us. And that's the basis of the queries that are made. But when someone draws a query, they'll get a small piece of that equipment in the whatever form that they requested it, and that will go back to the agent, the officer, the analyst from the law enforcement agency that has it.
So the answer is that the data does reside in a centralized location. It's validated and what we would call harmonized, so corrected or standardized.
Sure.
Within this centralized location. And what I thought I heard you say is that the corrections or these validations are sent out as synonyms back to the original source?
Well, let me see if I can answer that. The disparate, non-harmonized data is not queried because
Okay.
it's once it's been harmonized, standardized, that is what people can query against because the raw data can't be read in different.
Okay.
The application can't read all the disparate data until it's put in the same language.
Okay, so this is important to the questions that Councilmember Deputy Mayor Chavez was asking and Paloma, our supervisor again. So the data comes from the remote sources. It comes into a central data warehouse. It's corrected and standardized within that. And then these e-queries are applied to the centralized data warehouse. So SANDAG does not own the data itself because that's owned by the original contributors. But SANDAG does own this shell, which actually contains all the data. So it's kind of like having a refrigerator and you can't open it except for an e-query that goes through the crack.
That sounds pretty accurate.
Okay.
The
Thanks.
refrigerator helped.
Thank you. Mayor Snow.
I appreciate this and the questions that have come before. I had a couple clarifications. So I appreciate the questions on who are members and who has access. I do have deep concerns about the trajectory of how many inquiries we're receiving. In 2022, there was only around 650,000. And then there's a big jump, over 300,000. And we hadn't seen a jump like that over the course of the tracked history in these slides. And that appears to correlate perhaps with the 23 marker that the Representative Mondragon spoke of from Alliance SD, where Customs and Border Patrol had access. So I have deep concerns about those spikes. And can you speak to why you believe that there was such a jump from 2022 to 2023 and another increase from 23 to 24?
Yes, I can. And I would also like to say that the Customs and Border Protection have been a customer of ours since the early 2000s. I believe 2005, 2006, 2007, right in that timeframe. In terms of the application that I saw, it was lower when we launched Surfers, that application in late 2017, 2018. It was a new product that we were training people on. So there was a lot of queries, about 400,000, but it wasn't at the million mark. 2018, 2019, we were still training people, teaching people, adjusting the application as we would get feedback from the people. And 2020 came, and if you remember, that's when COVID started shortly after the year, and we had a lockdown for a year. And I was, when COVID came, I was a commander with the Sheriff's Department, and people were locked down. There were not the traffic stops. There were not people in the park. There were not as many of the radio calls for the types of service that law enforcement people actually get. So there were less calls for people to serve because so many people were at home during the lockdown time. But there was activity. There was also less proactive activity when officers have free time. As an industry, law enforcement agencies weren't out flying the flag, looking for different things because people were not supposed to be talking to each other, communicating with each other to prevent the spread of COVID. In 2023, the COVID was starting to fade a bit and people started becoming a little more proactive. And that's law enforcement across the country, not just here in San Diego. In 2024, you saw it spike up to 1 million. And that was pretty much when the effects of COVID were gone. And this is where you have people doing the normal law enforcement functions that are out there. And in 25, you see it was the same level at that time. And this is used by basically all 65 of our customers that using that application. But I would say that people were doing what they were doing before COVID started with this tool that they have after COVID.
So do you have, that information, is it based on data from audits that you've conducted that verify this storyline you've given us?
The storyline I gave you was from my personal experience as a law enforcement official, working with the command staff and the sheriff's department, talking to agents, talking to leaderships from other agencies within San Diego and across the country, trying to determine what are the trends? Are we ahead? Are we behind? What's going on? How are you doing those things? Those are all my personal experiences that I'm
Okay.
sharing with you,
So-
not based on any audits. I would imagine
Yeah,
there are.
So hang on just a moment. So I want to dig down into like, have we conducted an audit to see what the actual usage is and who is obtaining this data? Have there been spikes in data usage from particular departments? Are we doing that level of analysis?
Are you asking if Argus is doing that? No.
Okay.
I think, Mayor, to clarify that point, I think that's a little bit where legal's getting involved because us, it seems that we do not have the authority because we don't own the data, pulling those queries on specific agencies. It appears, and again, a legal will provide you more information. It appears that the owner agencies are the ones who can request that. Let's see, owner agency, City of San Diego Police, how has my data been used or who has been using my data? County of San Diego can do that. Again, don't go running with this one. Wait for legal's memo, but that's based on the research we've been doing. That's where the legal authority resides on doing the queries that you mentioned.
Thank you. So, uh, and that tracks with where I want to go next is we do have a role in oversight, and I took a look at the memorandum of understanding that we have. And in the memorandum of understanding, it has requirements for SANDAG to basically oversee what is happening with Argus. And so who is, in my understanding, it's like in the structure that you provided earlier, that it usually generates up, populates up, or percolates up from one of the member organizations, then goes to the Public Safety Committee, and then comes to SANDAG. So we're waiting for that agency at the bottom there from the sheriff's office to basically track and enforce compliance. Is that correct?
I think in the structure that I shared were the committees that are regional committees, not an independent agency. If you're talking about what an agent can do, an agency can actually contact us and ask us to do the audit on their behalf for the information they have. And that's one of the issues that legal is going to be preparing for you in the future. I would also like to say, if I can, if I make a mistake in any of these answers that I'm making in terms of what we can and we can't do technically, my staff is going to correct me as soon as I get to my office, and then Teddy will be sending you the update or the correction on what I misquoted to you.
That sounds good. I appreciate that. And then I also want to build off of Mayor Gasterlin's question about data access. In the MOU, it says that that the person who's receiving the agency, there are protections in place that they cannot extract or export the data that they've been given. So they can't aggregate it and collect it in the manner that Mayor Gasterlin was describing to use to track trends. Can you expound on that more? Because it seemed like the response to that was that they could indeed do that, which is not what's permitted in the MOU.
I think what I would like to explain is that, or what I tended to say, was that if someone does an extraction, like if I do an extraction and I work for the FBI and I pull the information out, I can use that information for the investigation I'm incurring, and I may share that with other investigators, people working on the task force in that area for the purpose of that investigation. I'm not allowed to sell that information or send it somewhere else for a purpose beyond what it was supposed to be taken out of, the intended purpose.
The actual MOU says that you're not able to extract the information or export it.
When I say extract, I would say that people are going to do a query and they're going to ask about Tony Ray with my birth date, and they will get information on me. That is, if we're talking the same language, that's pulling information out. That's part of the query that they get to do.
But they can't download it, right?
When they get the query, yes, it comes right back to their. Oh, I see what you're saying.
I just want to be clear, because the memorandum of understanding says that they cannot do those things.
I think I understand what you're saying.
Right.
Part where they can get the query and they can see it on their screen. Now, are they going to take it, download it, save it, and put it somewhere else? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, that's what
Okay.
that's what I understood we were
I
talking about.
believe you're correct. I would defer to I don't have it in front of me, and I would defer to our legal to give you the definitive yes or no answer on that, but what you're saying sounds correct.
Okay, because that's a significant protection that we've put in place in the memorandum of understanding to protect people from being able to have this information aggregated and used in the way that Mayor Gastelum had described. So if we can get a clarification on that from legal, that'd be important. And then my final question is about who is checking to make sure that there are warrants to access this information.
When you say warrants,
So in the access to information in the memorandum of understanding, it clarifies that in certain circumstances, members who are seeking information are required to obtain a warrant in order to be able to obtain that information. Who is verifying that those warrants are obtained? Who is reviewing those warrants? And who is making sure that those are valid warrants before that information is released?
I would like to honestly say that I've had no experience with that issue. I can research that for you. It seems to, I can speculate if you'd like.
It's probably better just to get a solid answer.
We'll get a
So if
legal
we can get
response
them
from
to follow up
Patty.
with that, that'd be great.
I want to make
Thank
sure I'm
you.
understanding the
I
question, and give
appreciate
the
it.
proper answer.
Yep, I appreciate your support in this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Shin.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Tony, for the update. So just a quick point of clarification for all of you. I sit on as the Vice Chair for the Public Safety Committee. Started last year. As everything started unfolding during the summertime of 2025, my mind kind of skewed. And what took place was I have a friend named George Reites, who is a U.S. Army combat veteran, served in Iraq. And up in Ventura, he was detained by ICE and was not allowed to speak out or get any information in on his location for 3 days. They finally released him, didn't charge him with anything. Once that happened to a veteran, that kind of tweaks my mindset. I know we're talking about public trust, but this is kind of beyond that with just my own personal trust with what's been taking place. So that took place in the summer, and then that's when I teed up for the agenda item to take place in our committee, which took place in September for the definition of SB 54. And so if you were to see that committee video, and Tony could probably agree, you guys are acting really tame compared to how I was when I was asking questions, because I was still kind of emotionally there with George and what took place. And I just really wanted to make sure that what we're doing locally is the right thing. I think that, and maybe Tony, you can clarify this, we as people responsible for our local law enforcement, because of SB 54, cannot document the fact that we believe someone is or is not legal or illegal with their immigration status.
That's correct.
Right. So I think that's like the first biggest safeguard, is that we as local electeds have to ensure that our law enforcement officers are not documenting that. That's the first kind of threshold, if you will. And then to query, it would be very difficult to even figure out what their status is, just because of the nature of how the data is received. Is that correct?
Could you ask that question again, please?
Yeah, the status of their immigration. So Kevin Shin gets arrested because I steal whatever donuts from somewhere. There's no way you're going to find out that Kevin Shin is a U.S. citizen here versus, he just came from Korea.
That's absolutely
illegally.
correct.
Okay, so that's some of the clarification. So privately, I had a lot of conversations with Tony as this was taking place, but then publicly in this meeting, I definitely were asking some serious questions that went probably a little bit above and beyond just SB 54, but really asking the audience of those that are of our police chiefs, like what is really going on here. And a couple things. Every police chief and sheriff right now, they've got the hardest jobs right now. It's a layered cake, and their ability to prevent and find criminals is one thing, and the relationship that they have to have on the federal side does need to exist. The only problem is the fact that one layer of this cake is so pronounced, and it really does look like, this is just my military side of it all, it looks like tactics are being taken without any strategic objective. And so I can't define the strategy of what the federal law enforcement are doing in this particular area. So then I'm looking at tactics that don't make sense. So that's just my purview on this. Yield back.
Mayor Ayers.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a couple of questions, one in the area of governance and the other in the area of traceability of queries. I'll start with the governance. I hope that this query will help answer Supervisor Aguirre's question. One of the things I did in prepping for this is I pulled the JPA and looked at it. And so the first thing I read was section 6 governance, or got to, and I'm going to read a quote out of there and then ask you a question. It says, all powers of ARGIS shall be exercised by the SANDAG Board of Directors. But it continues, the SANDAG Board of Directors shall delegate responsibilities to PSC, which shall be the ARGIS governing board. So when we talk about bringing it back to us, do we have to first, right now, it sounds like what we've done is essentially delegated it to the PSC and leave it with them. And that's why we haven't been seeing it. And I know this was last updated in July of 2023. Do you know when that section may have been updated, or has that been that way for a long, long time?
I'll pass that to Samantha.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Samantha Folk. I'm with the Office of General Counsel at SANDAG. To my knowledge, that section of the JPA is largely what it looked like prior to that revision, similar to the way SANDAG operates with its policy advisory committees that are not associated with ARGIS.
Yeah.
Many of the responsibilities have been delegated down to other committees for the purpose of streamlining business. That doesn't mean that the SANDAG Board of Directors can't hear items that are delegated to those committees.
But does it explain why we don't see it on a regular basis?
We could agendize more items.
No, I'm asking whether that
It does
clause.
explain it. It does explain it.
That
And that's
explains
what I was
why.
trying to mention to Supervisor Aguirre, that there are certain things that were delegated to Public Safety Committee, and items that go beyond the delegation come to the board, like the
Okay,
budget,
great.
right? The budget
So-
is recommended for approval by Public Safety Committee, but the board has ultimate say on the overall agency budget. And that's just an example.
Yeah, and if we wanted to change that and see it more often, we need to change the JPA. We should change the JPA.
It could be also a policy element, but I think it will be both, sir. And to be quite honest, this entire exercise, like Supervisor Aguirre, I won't use her words because exact words I don't remember, but when the waters get rough is when we get a little bit more sharpen our pencils and look at stuff, right? And definitely the JPA is due to a discussion for updates. Without talking beyond, and it's tending to be corrected by General Counsel's memo, I would say that most probably the appetite is going to be to provide SANDAG a little bit more authority to be able to audit or review the usage of the data, which right now we do not have that authority. Up to a point, right? Because the data is owned by those agencies, by each local agency. So maybe the JPA can also mention a little bit more to give SANDAG as a whole a little bit more authority to kind of have a better idea of the frequency of the usage and who are those users who are using or querying the data more often. That could be a potential change also in the JPA, where we are provided a little bit more leeway to be able to analyze those things.
And I think we've seen in recent years a move back from delegating everything down. So that would be, I think, a discussion we're ripe to have. So let me move on to my second.
I'm sorry, just to clarify that, if the board so desires to hear items regarding ARGIS on a more regular basis, we don't have to modify the JPA to do that. The board can make that a request and agendize that for a quarterly basis, a yearly basis, or however the board decides.
I think where I would be going is, my personal opinion, if we were to do this, is we'd like to decide what we want to see more of. Maybe not the whole thing, but decide which portions and whether it's at policy level or JPA level, we can do it either or both but so let me move on in the interest of time to traceability of inquiries. And so as we do inquiries or as people do inquiries, I assume they are all logged. And so the question is, do you have the ability to go back and look at the history of the inquiries to find out who did what when in case there is some potential malfeasance or alleged malfeasance, that we can go back and audit that, and any investigating authority or court or whatever would have the ability to find out what happened to that data?
That's a great question. And yes, we do. In fact, we have that ability because we support internal affairs agencies or the Officer Inspector General. Whoever's doing that investigation, they will ask for that and we'll support the investigation.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
May I?
Yes, please.
As I said, I've already been corrected since I'm standing here, sitting here. And the question on the warrants, the answer was yes. The agency I'm sorry, all warrants are directed to the agencies directly. They don't come to ARGIS, they come to the actual agencies who owns the data. And then we take direction from the agency on whether they want it released or not.
I appreciate that. So it goes, so that when one inquiry comes in that requires a warrant, it goes back to the, what does CMS stand for?
Charter member agency.
Charter member agency. So the member agency, but I think in the MOU, they're called like a contributing member. And the reason they're called a contributing member is because they're contributing information into it. And then on the other end, there's another type of organization that's a participating member.
Right.
They do not contribute information, right? So it goes back to the contributing member organization, the member organization that provided the information.
That's correct.
They're the ones who receive the warrant. They'll verify the warrant. And only and unless they say the warrant is effective, we're going to provide the information, will they release ARGIS to provide that information to that participating member agency or another CMS who's requesting that same information?
That's my understanding at this exact second. And I'm pretty sure that I'll be talking to Teddy to make sure we're not lying.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Molina.
Thank you. I have 1,000 questions, but I will hone it down a little bit. We talked a little bit about who owns ARGIS and does SANDAG own ARGIS? Yes.
SANDAG is the administrator of ARGIS. SANDAG can direct ARGIS. ARGIS is a separate government entity administered by ARGIS is an MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization. ARGIS is a joint power authority, but your entities signed the agreement saying that SANDAG would manage ARGIS.
SANDAG manages ARGIS. Okay. And ARGIS is a database of information that it gets from participating entities.
Yes, a large part of ARGIS is receiving the data and maintaining a database and then providing the applications and the connectivity to the agencies.
Okay. And I liked the refrigerator example that Mayor Gasterlin provided because you don't need to answer this question, but I do want clarification about what comes out of ARGIS after information goes in. So in this refrigerator, if ARGIS is the refrigerator and the contributing agencies or charter member agencies, people that are, or agencies that are contributing information, they bring in bread, ham, and cheese. What comes out of the refrigerator, is it bread, ham, and cheese, or is it a ham sandwich? I'm not clear. I'm not clear on that. So I need to understand that because then at that point, does the sandwich, is that owned? Does that continue to be owned by the agencies that contributed the information, or does that at some point, does the ownership change? I'm not clear. And forgive me for that oversimplification, but in my mind, I'm trying to make sense of this. I went back to that example because of the question regarding the warrants. That's a very interesting line of questioning. And real quick, this for our counsel, Teddy Long, this memo that you will be providing, I surely hope that it is I mean, I'm sure it's going to be substantive, but I surely hope that it is, 25 pages long. I don't know. very, very detailed in explaining a lot of these questions because I do agree that there is a lot of explanation that needs to happen that we haven't here at this group. We haven't had a chance to really get a chance to look at and digest and evaluate. And to be frank, the 1 year that I spent at the Public Safety Committee also was an introduction really to ARGIS for me. And it's only now that I'm truly understanding the impact of everything that ARGIS is or could be. So regarding this memo, I really look forward to this extensive memo.
I'll make my commitment that we will provide a summary of generally what ARGIS is. I think there's a lot of, and admittedly, that's why we have Tony here to explain what ARGIS is, what it isn't, what it can and can't do, and what the responsibilities are for ARGIS. So we'll provide that, and also the legal understanding about the parameters that and the limitations under state law and the existing agreements. And we'll provide a summary of all that. And after, I'm sure there'll probably be additional questions. I'm more than happy to meet with each of you individually to discuss. I'm sure everybody has their own specific questions, as we know here. And we could definitely do that after the memo comes up, but it will be a wholesome memo that you all will have.
Good, thank you. The one question I did have, a burning question, because you didn't bring up the legal aspects of ARGIS. I just want to clarify, SB 54, California Values Act, does say criminal data cannot be used for immigration purposes. Does ARGIS hold immigration data?
No.
Okay, and you mentioned the Division of ICE, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, that does access ARGIS.
Right.
If there's no immigration data, for what purpose does it access?
It's a great question. ICE investigates more than just immigration. Like I say, they're the people on the border at the ports of entry, the DHS HSI group that we work with. They're the people that are checking the cars that are coming across. They're doing narcotics enforcement. They're doing firearms enforcement, human trafficking enforcement, auto theft, agriculture issues and things. And many of the people that cross the border every day are in our system because they've been contacted here. They do acts here, they live there, and they're using that information to enforce these other crimes.
Thank you for that.
Also, if I could say, terrorism, we're a border community, and anti-terrorism is one of the things that they also do in that area. And they use our information to make sure that there's no bad actors in our system to be part of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Morena.
It's Moreno.
I know that, sorry.
No, but thank you for the presentation. In 2019, I was a committee member of the Public Safety Committee in the city of San Diego and also for SANDAG. So I do understand the importance of sharing cross-jurisdictional data to pursue and apprehend criminals that are a threat to the San Diego region. My concern today is that this information is being weaponized by the federal government to target certain individuals. And just for the record, I voted against the use of automatic license plate readers in the city of San Diego. One of the reasons is because ICE is using this technology to gather information and literally hunt human beings. I am concerned that these technologies are weaponizing public dollars and hurting our communities and really undoing what makes the San Diego region unique, which is our collaborative spirit, as has been demonstrated by ARGIS, and also a very important component of the San Diego region is our immigrant community. My question is there a law that requires SANDAG to share this data with any federal agency?
I don't think there's a law that states you have to share with the agency. I know the governor's guidance, Attorney General Becerra's guidance when SB 54 came out said that you should not deny an immigration agency access to this data simply because they're an immigration agency, but made the caveat that you cannot use this information for immigration purposes, but that you could use it for other types of crime and enforcement. So I don't think there's a law that says we have to, but the guidance says we should share with them for these other reasons.
Okay. It's 2026. We all look at the news and look at our Instagrams and our TikToks, some of us, and we're certainly living in a very different time. And ICE is not just going after criminals. So with that, I would like to put a motion out on the floor and ask staff to come back to this board to remove the ARGIS contract for DHS's Catch, INS, OIG, USBP, USC, USCG. That is my motion.
I'll second.
And this is just, I know it's an informational item, but my request is for staff to come back at the next board meeting with an actionable item. So I'm asking our board chair, I'm making a motion as a body.
I think what we might see is that we're going to come back with a memo. And then once we digest that, let's figure out what the actionable item actually could be.
Thank you. Obviously, I understand Robert's Rules of Order very clearly. There is a motion and a second on the floor. I do respect the chair's position, but my motion still stands.
And can you please weigh in on how that works? I'm not a master in these rules.
Yeah, it's the chair's prerogative.
Sorry, my understanding.
Can you restate your message?
Yes.
Your motion?
Yes. So my motion is to have staff come back to this board. And in that actionable item, it would look at removing the ARGIS contract for DHS's Catch, INS, OIG, USBP, USC, USCG.
Can you put in comma and among other things?
And among other things.
Because I mean, we're looking for like the memo. We need to figure out what we can do. And that is something that we can look at among other things.
And I'm open to the fact that maybe this doesn't make sense and it doesn't work and they're going to explain why. But I want this board to have the option to remove those contracts as an actionable item for the next meeting.
A point of order. I thought we had a procedure that required items that are not on our actionable and on our agenda to go through the executive committee before they could be put on our agenda.
Apparently
I know
it's
the
a-
former chair, Nora Vargas, enforced that pretty regularly. So I don't know, do we get rid of that policy or is that not an enforceable policy?
I was just told it was at the chair's prerogative.
It's the chair's prerogative, whether you want to take it to the executive committee, whether you wanted to bring it back to staff as a future agenda item. You know, the issue we have under the Brown Act is just because it's not notified for action and the public hasn't had a chance to, you know, be here and, you know, receive comment and notice. We have to do it just procedurally as in the manner that the chair just suggested.
If it helps, I'm hearing legal's request. So we could bring that back if that makes sense. We could bring back an actionable item.
Maybe it should be, can you bring back an actionable item? Because I think we all want an actionable item. We just don't know what that is yet. And
you know what, I'm going to keep my motion. I'm going to keep my motion on the floor. And if the body and the chair don't accept it, that's okay. But I've seen enough. I've seen it not here. I've seen enough from our federal agencies to know that I do not want to participate in what ICE is doing. And I don't want our SANDAG funding to provide a platform for ICE to detain 5-year-old children. Thank you.
Chair, I have a substitute motion, Chair.
Yes, Mayor Jones.
Thank you. If we were to bring back an item for education for us, I believe that I heard that what we're doing now does not actually, or the enforcement, the federal agencies that we are working with currently that are allowed to receive information from our ARGIS system are not using it or cannot use it for immigration, and that we're not sharing any immigration status with them. Is that correct? I just need an answer on that first.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So if we were to bring back an item, my motion would be, then we need to also include how drug dealers and arms dealers and human trafficking would be affected by such an action, and how it would if it would, impact law enforcement and how they would be able to enforce these types of offenses, because I think that would be a very important part of it. And I would want to be fully educated. And I think the whole board would, how that would impact those offenses. Because if we look at human trafficking, for instance, I was just at an event last night up in San Marcos at One Safe Place. San Diego is a hotbed for human trafficking. It hasn't changed. And I am extremely uncomfortable thinking about how any such action could potentially make human trafficking, the sale of people for whatever reason, how that could be impacted by such an action. So that would be something I would like to have. So add in to the motion by.
So is yours a substitute motion?
This is
So-
my substitute motion. So it's adding in how law enforcement may be impacted by offenses like drug dealing, gun dealing, and then also human trafficking.
Okay, so this is getting really complicated. I understand the sentiment in the room. Believe me, I understand it. And I understand that we have an oversight responsibility, and we also have a public trust responsibility. And we learned something, Argis, I mean, I've been on the board for a really long time. I've never been on public safety, but I didn't know this much about Argis. I had no idea. It only came up because we were in a new world, right? The one thing that gave me a little bit of comfort was the chart that showed there was no difference in inquiries between 2024 and 2025, a different administration in both of those. So, the question is, basically, are all Argis member agencies complying with SB 54? And to me, the answer is we don't know. We don't know that yet, right? And so we need to get this memo and find out what it is we can do without having unintended consequences that would cause other crimes from not being solved. So I'm going to change my decision and move this to the executive committee instead of entertaining a motion, so that we can have a more in-depth discussion about this once we get information. Because again, we've all seen, we've got a JPA agreement, we've got MOUs in there, we've got a very complicated data sharing system that you can get everything in, but only some things out. But do we trust? That's sort of the problem. So we're going to do all this. I mean, I hear what everybody's saying. I understand all the concerns. We have valid concerns. It's a new world. It's a different world. Let's use the executive committee to really, dive deep into this, and then we'll bring things back. So this is not the last time that we're going to be hearing this. So we're going to continue. I've got more people on the board, mindful of the time. Okay, it's 10 to 11 and we're going to lose some people. And we have a bond issuance coming up next where we need to have 2/3 of the members, not just present, but of the whole board to vote for that. We cannot lose people. So I've got about 8 people up on the board, so please keep it short. Next is First Vice Chair LaCava.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try to adhere to that. As you said, Tony, that technology has changed over the years, but the entire landscape has changed as well. And too often within our busy schedules as elected officials, as staff, some things just kind of get forgotten, get into the backwaters, and we don't go back and reevaluate how things were set up, how they're operated, what agreements were put in place, the decision, as the mayor mentioned, that the board delegated down to public safety. I think there was probably a particular philosophy at that time that did that. And unfortunate that it comes to very tense situations that cause us to relook at these things. And that's probably the worst time to reevaluate things, when there is so much pressure and there's so much frustration, there's so much anger, and there's so much tragedy that is happening. I understand what side I am on this, but I want to make sure that we navigate it in a very, very thoughtful way. And I appreciate your leadership. I also want to give a shout out that didn't get done at the beginning. I want to thank the chair and I want to thank Mario. And I especially want to thank you, Tony, that as this started to bubble up, there was an immediate, let's get out there and talk to everybody, because a lot of us we may have heard of Argis. We don't even know what the heck Argis is. We're not thinking about that on a daily basis. And your candor is truly remarkable in the law enforcement space that we don't often hear. So thank you. Thank you very much for that. Some quick questions. Hopefully you've been very good at very quick answers. I just wanted to make sure, I didn't read the Joint Powers Authority. Is it signed by only the 19 members that are SANDAG? Or is there
It's-
anybody else that signed
it's-
that joint powers
It's
authority?
the 19 members, the 18 cities, the county of San Diego, and SANDAG.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. There was a lot of questions about immigration status, and you've talked about how you scrub that. I am not an expert in this field by any means. Is there other documentation that gets entered into these records that could be directly or indirectly construed to interpret a person's status, whether they're a citizen or naturalized or on some kind of visa?
No, the effort was made in 2018 to eliminate anything that would indicate any terminology, any codes, any sentence structure. It was all taken out so that the system could not be used to indicate the status of anybody's citizenship.
Okay, I asked that because one of the public speakers made a suggestion that other documentation that might be included could be inferred to determine. So I know you have a sharp eye on that and you care about that very, very much. As the mayor's, as the chair said, and I think Teddy's really reemphasized the complicated nature of this, where it's a separate governmental agency, a joint powers authority, that somehow is administered by SANDAG, and yet SANDAG board has some authority, but I think it's really not. It's really the individual members of the joint powers authority that actually has that authority. And I would suspect, and somebody can confirm, that there has never been a meeting of the joint powers authority.
I would think you're correct.
Yeah, and that's really who should be standing up and actually having this discussion. We can do that in whatever fashion actually works and meets legal authority. So Teddy, you've agreed to a lot of things. You have a real challenge in front of you, even for veterans who've been here for a very long time, who have served on the Public Safety Committee, who is now getting into the nitty-gritty of how that actually works. I want to state on the record that my experience over the past week or two trying to understand and learn this resulted in the city of San Diego willing to call for an audit. And we couldn't even figure out how to do the audit I don't want to go to the Attorney General at that level. I don't think that's really appropriate at this time. But whether I asked my police chief to go and do an audit of city of San Diego records, or whether I reach out to the sheriff, who I understand through Cleats actually has the authority to look at everybody's record and do some kind of audit, which is very narrow, right? It's just how many times records have been accessed. As so many board members mentioned, we don't actually know what they do with the information once they have that, but it's been very confusing. City of San Diego is going to hold off until we get this updated memo and until, whether it's the executive committee, whether it's the JPA that gets together, has that larger discussion, because I'd like to see the dust settle. I don't want to add to any confusion and any tension that we already have, but the city of San Diego is very interested in exercising whatever audit rights we have to test what we can when we can going forward. And again, Tony, and both Tony, you and Teddy have been very good at trying to educate us and bring us up to speed. And I'll actually I'm not going to make a motion because I respect the Brown Act, with no disrespect to my colleague, that we actually think about a JPA meeting, because inevitably some of the things that we're talking about, the JPA has to decide. And the SANDAG board meeting may not be the most appropriate mechanism. It may be really the JPA do that. I'm glad it's only the 19 members, the 18 cities in the county of San Diego to do that. We have a lot of work in front of us. I don't think there is a more and more important time for us to act and making sure that double checking and giving our oversight work that you, I think, are doing very, very well at. But just to make sure, because as everybody has said around the table, no matter what role they have, trust in law enforcement is the most important thing we can do as elected officials. And this is one part of it. So I'll stop there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, First Vice Chair. Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you very much. I want to state my appreciation for Mario and for yourself for responding to my questions about what was happening with Argis. And as someone who I was a deputy public defender for 20 years, and obviously Argis was incredibly critical towards reaching justice. Basically, not just to for purposes of finding folks who are perhaps the person who committed that crime, but also to help clear a person of crime. And in the process of having a trial, certainly Argis was incredibly important to make sure that we knew who the witnesses were and the credibility of those witnesses. For me, in terms of what happened during that low kind of spike, that was not just, but primarily I thought it was COVID, but it was also the decriminalization of certain charges, for example, theft. And so I will tell you that our police department was very, very frustrated that they could not even give a ticket out to anybody. So this was, okay, so our officers are very, very frustrated. And can you imagine the public, right? So I believe that we are trying to do the best that we can in terms of getting that justice and the changing landscape, not just in terms of immigration, but also the criminal, the statutes and what should be considered something more serious, like Prop 36 ended up saying, okay, perhaps we were too lenient on these kind of petty thefts, and maybe it was really meant to take in the pizza cases, but it certainly wasn't meant to do go into a high-end store and grab very high-end things. As to this, I appreciate your presentation. I do see a need for perhaps having that review. For now, I would certainly recommend this, that this body end up, once we receive that memo from legal, which will help us with that criteria and determining how often perhaps we should be looking into this. Probably the first time will be pretty, high end. And then maybe the review would be maybe every 6 months until such time that I hope things end up a little more normal. I don't want to accept that this is a new normal, but let's go ahead and do that. Let's get that memo, and then let's make sure that we are timely in terms of moving on this. Thank you. And I do think it would be premature to have a motion now, because I think we're all waiting to see what that memo says. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Jones.
Thank you. Just one follow-up question. So currently, you said, Tony, and thank you for being here today, and thank you for your presentation. You have said that we are in compliance with SB 54. Yes?
Yes, the entire operation is in compliance with SB 54.
All right. So if there was ever a complaint that data was being misused, that would be, because we're not, a law enforcement body, that would be the California DOJ that would be looking into that. Is that correct?
It's the two agencies. The agency itself is supposed to look into itself, and the California Department of Justice has the authority to do the audits.
Okay, so once we get the memo, we'll know a little bit more about, and we can figure out, I think we should always be governing ourselves, but to have an extra layer that we are doing the right thing and that we are following the law that we're required to follow, SB 54, I think that's, at least there is something in place so we can feel, comfortable with the fact that there is governance actually happening.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Maxon.
In the interest of time, I defer my questions to the next presentation.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Councilmember Casares.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I apologize that I came in during public comment, but I was listening online on my way here. So I want to say thank you for the presentation, and thank you to all of my colleagues for your consideration, and especially to our council. I'm really looking forward to that memo. I just want to use my time now to very briefly share. We started having this conversation. I started having a very similar conversation with my chief of police, my city manager, and our city attorney back in September with really wanting to ideally bring something forward. We are very much in compliance with SB 54, but to make it as strong as possible. I was hoping to have something forward in October, and then in November, and then in December, and then now in January. And it's so complex because of the reasons that Mayor Jones brought up. There are a lot of really critical needs for this type of data and information to be shared. And also, I think there is a very real possibility that it is being abused because we don't know once it's downloaded, as Mayor Gasterland and Mayor Snow brought up, where it's going, who it's going to. And so I'm going to say two things and then I'll be all done. First, I'm going to encourage all of my colleagues. I imagine all of us have already started having these conversations, but if you haven't, I encourage you to do so, because even though everything we see at SANDAG is complicated and we need a lot of information, each individual city is so different from one another and has even from La Mesa to El Cajon is a great example of how different our agencies operate. And so I want to encourage that. And second, if there is any possible way for us to have some kind of tracker essentially on downloaded data, I don't know that there is. I would like for us to explore that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Duncan.
Thank you. I appreciate all the board members' comments and questions and concerns, and I think they all come from a very good place. I appreciate the comments that were just made by Mayor Sanchez a few minutes ago that, we have a serious job when it comes to what we do, particularly in regard to something like this matter, to be fully analytical and understand all the information. I don't necessarily believe all of that type of information can be included in our general counsel's report. Understanding what the effect is to the public safety of our community based off of what this information and how it's used by our law enforcement officers is absolutely essential in making a decision. We don't make it off of emotion. We don't make it off of anecdotes, and we don't make it off of no connection between this information and other things, which, can be and are, I'm not saying things aren't happening that are, potentially abhorrent or shocking to people or inappropriate, right? But if there's no connection, to take an action based off of no connection or a hunch or a supposed is really irresponsible, particularly when it has large public safety issues. Customs and Border Patrol intercept the narcotics that are coming across the border, the fentanyl. We have 100,000 people a year dying in the United States, over 1,000 people dying in this county per year, not even talking about all of the other types of crimes that were mentioned by Mayor Jones, but purely just on the drugs. And, somebody's using them when they're getting billions and billions of dollars of drugs being intercepted, and there's still that much coming over. Someone is actually using them. So I think looking and having that information, what are our chiefs using this information for? What is Customs and Border Patrol using it for? It may be popular with bases. It may be popular for running for office to, say we hate Border Patrol or whatever. But I care about protecting the lives of our citizens and having strong legal and appropriate law enforcement, particularly when we have no evidence that it's being used to, arrest 5-year-olds in, the middle of California. So I think we should just be really well informed and do what is best for the protection of our constituents who we represent, and including the ones we don't represent. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Shin, if you can be really, really brief,
Real
I'd
brief,
appreciate
yeah.
it. Thank
I just
you.
want to say, I think the big question is just the integrity of ARGIS, but also Mayor Ellers brought it up. I still believe that my position in the Public Safety Committee is where this should lie. so that we're not doing this for hours at the Board of Directors meeting. And I just hope that there's trust in this board when selecting committee members, that they're going to take the committees, with extreme prejudice on making sure that we're doing it all the right way. So when we get this report and it's all said and done, I really do hope that this board trusts me in understanding all your tone and tenor, but also what is applicable and not. And I would have come back to the board had I felt like Tony was not providing me the appropriate information, or if I felt like Argis's integrity to holding SB 54 accountable was such. So that's all I want to say about that. But I hope we don't change the way the structure is with committee processes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. Not the last time we're going to be discussing it. Thank you, Tony, Teddy, Samantha. Thank you so much. We're going to move on right
Can I
now.
just make one sentence comment?
One sentence, Mayor Duncan.
I am supportive of looking, as Councilmember LaCava was saying, at what is the proper supervisory structure. When he says it's the JPA, is the JPA SANDAG, if we're all a member, I am for scrutiny. I want to make sure I am for scrutiny, but as Member Shin said, it's not appropriate to say it doesn't go to SANDAG, it goes to the Public Safety Committee. The Public Safety Committee is SANDAG. But I am for that type of structural reform. I just wanted to mention that so our general counsel maybe can give us what type of options or changes would be needed. Thank you.
Exactly, because the JPA it's not just us, it's like the originating, it's like the SDPD, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have to even look into that. Okay, on to the next item. The Transnet proposed 2026 bond issuance. Dawn and team, please go ahead.
Thank you and good morning. Today we are going to be presenting the proposed 2026 bond issuance. We provided some information last month and now we have a review of the bond documents and we'll be seeking a recommendation for approval of this issuance. Today with me, I have the financing team. Many SANDAG staff were involved in preparation of these documents for you. Today, we also have Mudra Patel from PFM Financial Advisors, Victor Shu from Norton Rose Fulbright, John Guz is here from Stradling, Yucca Carlson and Roth. Our underwriter is in the room with us, Julie Berger from Wells Fargo. Co-managers include Barclays, Bank of America, and Hilltop Securities. And Betsy Blake is our senior legal counsel for this deal. We're going to be reviewing some items with you today, going over refunding, the refunding overview, the size and the structure, the credit rating, the bond documents, and a calendar of events. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mudra.
But one thing before Mudra comes in, I just want to put it in perspective. We're doing a bond reissuance because there's an opportunity for the agency to save some money. This bonds reissuance is not to go and do something new or anything like that. This is just a refinance of some of the bonds. And the team saw an opportunity for the agency. So I know it's been discussed and probably will be discussed, but I want to put it in that perspective.
Thanks, Mario. And so before we go into the main 5 items, we just wanted to start the presentation by reminding the board that there's $2.2 billion outstanding in SANDAG's debt portfolio across 3 liens. And if you see in the table, the 3 that are highlighted in blue are the ones that we're going to be focusing on today. So why are we issuing these bonds? As Mario mentioned, this is a straightforward refinancing. So we are refunding a portion of your bonds and replacing that with lower cost debt to realize debt service savings. And it's pretty similar to if you've ever refinanced your mortgage or car loans and that reduces your monthly payments. It's very similar to that. And more specifically, we're refunding the 2016 bonds. Those are callable in in April 2026, which means you can refund them at par. So we're pursuing that. And then alongside that 2016 refunding, we're also taking opportunity of some market conditions to refund a portion of taxable Series 2019 As and 2021 As. And then diving a little bit deeper into the refunding plan for the 2016A bonds, there's about 272 million outstanding. And the proposed plan is to refund all of those bonds. Almost all except one maturity produces more than 3% PV savings on that. The one that doesn't is a short maturity 2027, and those seldom produce very strong savings. So we recommend refunding all of the 272 million for savings. And then apart from that, on the 2019As and 2021As specifically, the proposed plan is to refund a small portion of those, just select maturities that produce strong savings and are good candidates. But again, the amounts that are shown here might change as the market conditions change closer to pricing, but we expect to be able to refund a portion of these for savings, and we will do so ensuring that there's compliance with Board Policy 36 in terms of savings criteria and structure. And on the next slide here, we talk about the proposed size and structure of the transaction. So the resolution outlines that the not to exceed par amount for this transaction will be 400 million. The estimated current par amount that we plan to issue is about 334 million. This will be a combined plan of finance, which produces strong NPV, net present value savings, estimated about in the range from 35 to 43 million. Again, to Mario's point, straightforward transaction. We're issuing fixed rate bonds, tax exempt senior lien matching what we're refunding. We're doing a matched maturity structure, which means that we're not extending the final term of any of the maturities, and also pursuing a uniform debt service savings structure, which means that your payments will be uniformly reduced every year from now through final maturity of this debt. And that's estimated about 2.5 million every year. And then in terms of ratings, SANDAG obviously has carried very strong ratings. So your senior liens rated AAA with both S&P and Fitch. And we did meet with the rating agencies in conjunction with the proposed issuance. And the 2026 bonds were also assigned AAA by both those rating agencies. On the subordinate lien, we can see that Fitch is AA+, and you are seeing highlighted that S&P is now AA+. As of yesterday, they upgraded that rating to AA+. So congratulations to the board and staff on that upgrade. And then on the junior subordinate lien, both the rating agencies rate that at A+, and that is also a strong rating considering that that's the third lien. And so this is the meat of the transaction, or the meat of this presentation, the bond documents. So you saw there are quite a few attachments with this item, and these are all listed on this page. So the first one's the PFM memo, and then the other 5 are legal documents associated with the bond transaction. And we'll talk about all of them in a little bit more detail on the subsequent slides, starting with the PFM memo. So the PFM memo, again, it's from yours truly, your financial advisor. We've put together a memo that describes the transaction, and it essentially kind of outlines the 3 series that we're targeting for the refunding this time and why we're targeting those. And it also produces and also kind of outlines the estimated savings for each of those components, and outlines on the financial considerations associated with this transaction. But essentially, there's recommendation in there to go ahead and refund the 2016 and a portion of the 2021s and 2019As that produce strong savings for a refinancing. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Betsy to take the presentation forward.
Sure. I'm just going to read a fiduciary duty statement for the record, which relates to the board's obligations with relation to the transaction and all the documents. So as detailed in the report, board members have a fiduciary responsibility to become familiar with the documents related to the proposed bond transaction, to make an informed decision, and to ensure there are no inaccuracies concerning SANDAG in those documents. In particular, board members should review the draft preliminary official statement, the POS, which is attachment 5 to item 4. The POS is the primary disclosure statement that investors review in evaluating SANDAG and deciding whether to purchase these bonds. In reviewing the documents, you should ensure that to the best of your knowledge, all of the factual statements are correct in all material respects, and that the information does not contain any untrue or misleading statement of a material fact or fail to state any material fact that would make the information in any of the documents regarding SANDAG or the commission misleading. Now, to the extent that you are aware of any inaccuracies, you should make that fact known. Now, when carrying out your fiduciary responsibilities, you're allowed to rely on SANDAG professional staff, bond counsel, and disclosure counsel, all of whom are present here today, to assure that you're in compliance with the anti-fraud provisions of the federal securities law. And you can do this as long as the reliance is reasonable. So in order for the reliance to be considered reasonable, you must, 1, make a complete disclosure of any potentially material mistake or omission in the documents that's apparent to you. 2, request the professional's advice on what disclosure is proper. 3, receive advice regarding the appropriate disclosure. And then finally, you can rely on good faith on that advice. SANDAG's Bond and Disclosure Counsel are here today and will share with you further information regarding the documents and what disclosures are proper. I'll also share with you that the Chief Financial Officer, Don Batiste, our Director of Accounting and Finance, Kimberly Trammell, Naomi Young, the Principal Economist, and myself as legal counsel have all reviewed the draft bond documents, and to the best of staff's knowledge, all of the statements are true and correct in all material respects, and the information does not contain any untrue or misleading statement of a material fact or omit to state any material fact that would make the information in those documents regarding SANDAG misleading. I'll now turn it back over to Mudra and the panel to continue explaining the proposed bond transaction to you.
Actually, we're going to go ahead with the next slide to turn it over to Victor, our bond counsel, but I do want to mention the report that you have before you with the preliminary official statement was posted as of last week. There are many little nits that have been corrected already. For example, we heard from one of the jurisdictions that titles, city membership and movement with the cities was updated. So those have been updated as of last night. We got a new update from the clerk. That really is not one of those material things. This is stuff that we really make sure we are completely current before we will post anything. But since we did hear from one of the jurisdictions just last night or this morning, wanted to make sure everyone was aware that the board membership is updated.
Thanks, Don. So attachment 2 in your package is the draft Regional Transportation Commission authorizing resolution. In it, the issuance of bonds is authorized in a principal amount not to exceed $400 million with other parameters. The interest rate on the bonds are not to exceed 6%, with the true interest cost not to exceed 5%, and the refunding maximum maturities are not to be extended longer than existing maturities that are being refunded. Each document will be reviewed in greater detail, but to summarize, we have the official statement in preliminary form, which describes the terms of the bonds and material information about the commission to investors. We also have the 14th supplemental indenture. It supplements the master indenture and sets forth the terms of the bonds and the duties of the commission and the bond trustee. There is the bond purchase agreement. This agreement sets forth the terms on which the underwriters agree to purchase the bonds from the commission. And finally, we have the continuing disclosure agreement. It sets forth certain post-closing ongoing obligations of SANDAG as the commission to disclose annual information and the occurrence of certain listed events. Finally, the authorizing resolution approves all other actions that are necessary or desirable to achieve the resolution's purposes. So let me discuss attachment 3, which is the 14th supplemental indenture. The supplemental indenture sets forth the specific terms of the bonds, including, for example, interest rates, maturities, redemption provisions. It also contains certain covenants, including covenants to comply with certain post-closing tax and disclosure-related requirements. This 14th supplemental indenture is very similar to prior fixed-rate supplemental indentures that have been approved by the Commission. It contains certain specific information to be added once we price the bonds within the parameters authorized by the Commission in the resolution. Redemption dates, interest rates, and so forth. Attachment 4 is the bond purchase agreement. This is the agreement between the Commission and the underwriters, specifically with Wells Fargo Securities as the senior manager of the underwriting syndicate. The agreement sets forth the terms on which the underwriters will agree to purchase the bonds and will be updated with final pricing information on the date of pricing. This agreement contains certain representations of the Commission and the underwriters and other parties, and the forms of legal opinions to be delivered by counsels to the transaction participants. I will now turn it over to SANDAG's Disclosure Counsel, John Guz.
Thank you, Victor. Attachment number 5 is the preliminary official statement. The preliminary official statement, or POS, contains information, statistics, and summaries regarding the commission, sales tax revenues, and the bonds that prospective purchasers of the bonds are likely to need to make an investment decision. The commission has retained us as disclosure counsel to assist the commission in preparing the POS and to complete it once the pricing and sale of the bonds has occurred. At that point, it's considered the final official statement. The data included in the preliminary official statement and the final official statement after pricing will be reviewed by the commission staff and the financial advisor, and the summaries of the legal documents and the bonds and other content. Each document will be reviewed by bond counsel and underwriters counsel. The commission is ultimately responsible to ensure that the preliminary official statement and official statement are accurate, contain all information material to investors, and do not omit any material information. Attachment number 6 is the continuing disclosure agreement. For the underwriters to comply with applicable securities law and to sell the bonds, the commission must agree in a written undertaking to provide annual reports to the municipal marketplace of certain information, including sales tax revenue and audited financial statements, and notices of certain enumerated events, including payment delinquencies, defeasances, and rating changes within 10 days of their occurrence. The commission has retained Digital Assurance Certification LLC, or DAC, to assist the commission in posting information for investors on the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board's electronic municipal market access system as required under the continuing disclosure agreement. DAC has assisted the commission on prior bond issues with this responsibility. And with that, I will be turning it over to Mudra.
And so in the final couple slides, the cost of issuance, the estimated cost of issuance that we've collected is about $1.1 million on this transaction, but that's on the size. The par size of this transaction is 334 million. So on a relative basis, that's about 0.3%. Also, the resolution that we just talked about describes a not to exceed parameter on the combined cost of issuance for an underwriter compensation of about 1%. And the current estimates are lower than that. And then also want to mention that the savings that we talked about, so estimated savings of about 35 to 43 million on this transaction, those are also net of any costs associated with the transaction. And then on the next slide, to wrap things up, the next steps, we've already met with rating agencies and we are here for board authorization. Subject to authorization, we plan to post the POS to the market either later today or early next week to start the marketing process. We plan to price the week of February 2nd and then close a week later, the week of February 9th. With that, Dawn.
Thank you, Mudra. So if we can move to the recommendation slide today, the Board of Directors, acting as the Regional Transportation Commission, is asked to adopt RTC Resolution Number RTC 2026-03, authorizing up to $400 million of 2026 bonds to refund certain outstanding bonds and execution and distribution of the transaction documents. And that concludes the presentation, and we're available for your questions.
Thank you so much, team. I appreciate it. We'll take public comments now, and then we'll move on to member discussion.
Yeah, so we have 2 in person and we have 2 online. It's Truth followed by Caesar.
For the record, when we listen to numbers, we hear plates clinking. One of my favorite things to tell people about SANDAG is that it's an agency that has managed to use our tax dollars to rack up $2.2 billion in outstanding debt. Congratulations. I also remember when former CFO Andre would feed us complete lies on the Tiffy loan and how great SANDAG was doing financially. And one didn't have to be a numbers person to read right through that shady character. Advanced refunding savings is but one method of debt savings. SANDAG should be focused on how to reduce the overall budget. One easy method is to look at how MTS and NCTD are being funded with zero accountability put on the money. If instead there were requirements of a 100% paid ridership threshold, or maybe something more realistic, in order to receive our tax dollars, we could see massive savings and reduce crime in all of our communities. Who in their right mind wouldn't support that? Unless they were in on the union back grift, of course. And Matthew left the board, what do you know? Scaling back unused bike lanes would also save millions of our tax dollars. What if no bike lane was funded by SANDAG unless there were proven metrics of existing need? Would that be too fiscally responsible? Is SANDAG in the game show business of a grift or gift? As in, you're either in on the grift or you're on the receiving end of public gifts. Considering that this item seems to be a joint board of directors and regional transportation commission meeting slash decision, it seems technically a little bit like a grift. The underwriters seem to be Wells Fargo, US Bank, Bank of America, Barclays, and Hilltop Securities, for the record. In the preliminary official statement, why does the Transnet ordinance project suddenly include HOV express lanes and good movements, which I don't think was ever in Transnet? The statement also says that 2 of the top 5 employers are government, which is a sign of a very unstable economy. I hope you guys are planning for that. I did notice that at the end of the bond purchase agreement, after the phrase respectfully submitted, there is no signature or name provided. Why not? You couldn't put thanks SANDAG. So I'm going to suggest comma overtax residents of San Diego County. Thank you.
Next is Cesar Javier, followed by Paul the Bold online. Please note this is the Transnet proposed 2026 bond issuance refunding topic.
I told you, Mom, that SANDAG board of directors are wearing several governance clothing. Do you understand that? Argis, while you are still a ghost, not living, not kicking, not acting, process the presentation. If it is good, better, best, let's do it. And I hope that this lesson, as we accumulate, I think our city governance should learn by heart and mind. Councilor Moreno, thank you for your input. Councilor Lacaba, let's review, look back at the past, because you are representing the city of San Diego, our community in this board, which is all about funding. That's why you cannot solve our community issue. This is all about money. Argis, start the investigation, get the information, and put justice for San Diegans. Listen. I know Councilor Moreno is doing her best, using her money, I mean the District 8 money. You deserve to be devolved and be the mayor by the border. Thank you.
Next is Paul the Bold online, followed by Blair Beekman. This is the bond issuance refunding item.
Paula Bold. I will be brief, actually. The staff report cites a $55 million savings under current market conditions. Current, let me stress, current. The market is changing so fast these days, you might want to proceed rather quickly on this. Unfortunately, I heard that people are submitting memos which might alter the bond conditions a bit, so not sure how you can actually approve the bonds. Another thing, I hope people snap up the new bonds, but with a recession or worse in the making and expected. And the most likely buyers, Californians, fleeing the state, I suspect your financial predictions won't be right, and you'll probably lose money or put us taxpayers in debt big time. And for our the report uses standardized data, and that means things are omitted or minimized. Please take that into account. Thank you.
Next is Blair Beekman, followed by our last public comment, Consuelo.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks for this item. Pretty good memo from you guys. It was very clear in what it was offering and how we could watch the bond process move forward here at SANDAG. I imagine you have other bonds around, but it was a good beginning start about talking about accountability. I think we're all understanding accountability can be really hard to work towards. Good luck that we're working towards it right now. And in many practices within SANDAG. I'm interested how these bond issues can be related to the upcoming, we're having a really big 2027 year of reviewing budget issues. I'm really interested in the idea of how to be working on budget issues in 2027, not as cutting services and raising rates. I mean, that is just really dull in how to think of our lives, what we can be building towards. The no fare system is an obvious example, but I think there can be other economic models that to really move forward from 2027 beyond that I hope you're considering that I assume bond issues would have a part in. I'm not all that much of an expert on this stuff, but I just wanted to put it out there as suggestions about being creative in the upcoming 2027 budget year. And to quickly note, I felt Argus spoke of possible new data sharing plans with state and federal agencies last week at their SANDAG Public Safety Committee meeting. Please review it for better public dialogue here in the future. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks.
Our last public comment is Consuelo. You're self-muted, Consuelo. Consuelo, you think your phone might be muted?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was. I just actually I raised my hand because I thought I'd want to speak on this, but I'm just listening and I have really not much to say. But
Did you want to continue your comment, or that concludes our public comment on this item, Chair?
Very good. I'll go to First Vice Chair LaCava.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation of the good work. I think refunding bonds is part of good governance and fiscal management. And anytime we can save $1 or $40 million is a good thing. And having your sharp eyes on these opportunities as they, manifest themselves is very much appreciated. We have a lot to do, not necessarily a lot of revenue to do it with. So I'm very grateful for that. Just a couple of questions, given the awesome responsibility the board has in taking this action. Does staff believe that in the preliminary official statement that you have disclosed everything that a particular buyer of the bonds should know and that it was displayed accurately?
Yes.
Was staff asked to make any changes or to misrepresent something?
No.
Okay. You know why I'm asking those questions?
Yes,
Okay.
100%.
Is there anything that the board, that you would ask the board to pay particular attention to in the official statement that might raise some questions, or the board member might have some intimate knowledge in a very lengthy document?
Yeah, so I mean, I can ask John to weigh in here as well, but factually, we presented information on revenues. Naomi did a really solid scrub on the economy. There are certain risk areas that we've also addressed. John, is there any other particular area of the POS itself?
No, I think that's correct. We, worked closely with staff, and they were very involved throughout the process of refining the language, in particular about the risks associated with the sales tax, to provide, all the material information to potential investors considering the purchase of these bonds.
Okay, I certainly appreciate the change in governance and oversight in these, given some of the bad practices of the past that we've learned some lessons from, and we do a much better job in terms of disclosure going forward. With that, Chair, I will move the staff recommendation.
Second.
Very good. Motion by LaCava, second by Casares. I'll go on to Councilmember Picus.
Yes, I had a few brief questions. I was looking this over, and maybe I don't understand finance that much, but under the slide for the projected costs, you had an expense for underwriting of 490,000, and that's the one expense I didn't understand. So maybe if I get from the presentation you gave, the underwriter buys the bonds from SANDAG and then goes out and sells them, and the 490,000 was like the risk and the service of doing that. Is that my understanding?
Yes, that is compensation for risk that they're taking. They get a takedown. It's a per bond amount, and it's negotiated with the underwriter. It's first we go out competitively and get bids on this, and then we select an underwriter, and decide through a competitive process. And it's a per bond compensation, and it is to compensate the underwriter for the risk that they take, that they may not be able to turn around and sell these bonds to end investors. So.
Right. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor Jones.
Thank you so much, Chair. So we have in certain areas of our city, developers have set up public facilities, CFDs, and so we do this on a regular basis in San Marcos refinancing. I just had one question for our council, Alfred, and that is, I looked at at everything, and it looked normal. I didn't see any red flags, and I just wanted to ask you, because you represent the board specifically, that you did not see any red flags or anything that looked out of line to you. All right, thank you. Thank you. And I'm not asking because I think there's something going on. I just wanted to have that on the record. Thank you.
Very good. All right. So because issuance of obligation bonds requires a 2/3 vote of all members of the SANDAG board acting as the Regional Transportation Commission, Michael will take a roll call vote, and the primary and secondary reps from the County of San Diego and the City of San Diego will be entitled to vote. All right. So Michael, please go ahead.
City of Carlsbad, Councilmember Shin.
Aye.
City of Chula Vista, Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
City of Coronado, Mayor Duncan.
Aye.
City of Del Mar, Councilmember Gasterlin.
Aye.
City of El Cajon, Mayor Wells. City of Encinitas, Mayor Ehlers.
Yes.
City of Escondido, Mayor White is absent. City of Imperial Beach, Mayor Pro Tem Fisher.
Aye.
City of La Mesa, Vice Mayor Casares.
Aye.
City of Lemon Grove, Mayor Snow.
Aye.
City of National City, Vice Mayor Molina.
Yes.
City of Oceanside, Mayor Sanchez.
Yes.
City of Poway, Councilmember Picus.
Yes.
City of San Diego, Council President LaCava.
Yes.
City of San Diego, Councilmember
Moreno, yes.
City of San Diego, Mayor Jones.
San Marcos, yes.
Yes. City of Santee, Mayor Minto.
Yes.
City of Beach, Mayor Huebner.
Yes.
City of Vista, Councilmember Melendez. As absent. County of San Diego, Supervisor Aguirre. is absent. County of San Diego Supervisor Anderson is absent. And that passes unanimously, Chair, with those members present.
Okay, very good. We're actually going to go to consent. So, Michael, do we have public comments on the consent agenda?
We do have public comment. We have 4 in person. And if you are online, please raise your hand now. First up is Truth, followed by Valenzuela.
Item 3.1, was any board member absent? The minutes also don't say who was late because many board members shamefully were. If you're not living in North County or an unincorporated community, you really have no excuse. And those communities stuck in heavy traffic is proof that SANDAG and Caltrans have achieved nothing tangible to improve people's transportation experience. Item 3.3, good to see the $3.7 million sole source contract with Road One Towing coming to an end in the near future. It only took over 2 years to see some transparency in the cost to add security to these meetings, over $847,000 for only 6 months of work. And WSP getting a sole source $460,000 for some mystery blue line construction design. What is that for? What needs redesigning on a brand new trolley line? I do not believe the city of San Diego should get any extension on inclusive public engagement guide. 1, public engagement should be the first part of a project completed. And 2, San Diego has failed miserably at public engagement, as evidenced by Toad Gloria barring the public from the public chambers during his State of the Failed City address. However, I'm glad to see $31,000 in sidewalks, about time. The RTIP amendments means the Building Construction Trades Council is getting $278 million of our tax dollars to stay in power and keep installing their minions who can't even show up, like Manuela, Blakespeare, and Toad Gloria himself. Why so many late approvals on purchase card use? 3 months of meetings total $3,307.97. Item 3.4, $7 million for 2.1 miles of bike lanes equals about $3.3 million a mile for an area that has potholes and the bike lanes are empty. And again, staff underestimated the cost by over 7%. So overestimate so you get closer to accurate. This continues to be my advice. Item 3.5, lose your well thought out comments on the stupid growth program changed my mind. I 100% agree that rules, no matter how noble their intentions may be, should not be changed at a halfway point when an agency already met the criteria required. So I am glad that you stayed and shared your perspective so that National City could earn some belated Christmas gifts. It's about time something goes right for National City. Thank you.
I'm sorry, this is consent. I mixed up with the non-agenda. So actually there was only 1 comment for consent, and that's Truth. And we're hopping onto online. This is consent, and it's Andrea Ebbing. Please identify what consent item you're speaking to. Andrea, you're self-muted.
Hi, this is Andrea Ebbing. I'm going to speak to the, let's see, 3.2 Policy Advisory Committee actions. I wanted to just say that there's a real issue right now that's obviously spreading like wildfire, which is the fact that we need a far more transparent process in everything we do. I hope that, you know, if we're really taking policy seriously and we want to really enact this due process situation, I'm asking that people really please take into consideration that we literally cannot enforce any such policy if we have a district attorney who has a federal judge been in the same household sharing the same systems. So if she has access to these files as the lead prosecutor, obviously she can manipulate them however she so wishes. If she has an agenda, like say, for example, importing 120,000 Afghani refugees and needs to remove them, her federal judge husband can then issue a warrant to remove anybody he wants to. I was saying earlier about that Guzman case, you know, Antonio Guzman has his license chopped up in front of him and he's detained by ICE as soon as they open the doors in Otay. I believe it's because his last name is Guzman. I think that the people involved in his false deportation and the destruction of his family are giving each other high fives saying, we got a Guzman, yes, when he doesn't, he's not El Chapo, okay? I mean, he's a local and, you know, I feel like it's theater and it's really unfortunate. It's time we kind of really do look at policy and how things are being enforced and enacted. It would be a complete conflict of interest to remain under the spell of the Bermuda Triangle of injustice. Thank you so much.
Next is Blair Beekman, followed by our last public comment, Paul the Bold. Please identify what consent item you're speaking to.
3.1 and 3.5. Yeah, for 3.1, I always do that. For item 3.1, thank you. I wanted to speak to just a quick thank you to you mentioned working with tribal community issues, and thank you for that. I get the sense they're a bit uncomfortable in the tribal communities and working with SANDAG. We tried to reach out to them. Good luck with that effort takes to better work together. We're all talking about accountability a bit more now. Maybe that can be a good notion to ask them about and their input on that sort of subject. To speak to item 3.5, Smart Growth Incentive Program, Cycle 6 Capital Project Funding Recommendations. You've had a few recent lectures about your smart growth issues around the city of San Diego downtown area, East Village area. It's difficult for yourselves to talk about, really talk about what technology is doing and what it's about in a community. With the previous Argus item, it's difficult to really talk about the data collection process. I hope we're in some beginning stages to try to better talk about these things more openly and clearly. I'm here every week. I'm not very good at this either. I want to be able to develop ways so it's more understandable and accessible and easier for all of us. And we're not under any sort of, we have to keep everything hush hush because of national security. We're entering a new era where our data and collection and technology is a process of our community. And it's not a secret government process anymore. And we have to learn how to make those conversations more open and clear with each other. So really good luck what we're going to do with Argus and the smart growth issue here on 3.5. Thank you.
Our last public comment is Paul the Bold.
Gabby.
Thank you, Paul Bold. Approval of proposed solicitations. Well, I say you have 105 construction firms which showed some interest in Bikeways project, but only 6 firms actually bid. Something's wrong. Did 99 firms perhaps realize what a scam the Bikeways are? And the 10% contingency fee seems like a bit much when inflation is less than 5%. Pity we don't have a contract so we can find out why, or whether this will be better and safer for us and bikers like than the other bikeways. CEO delegated actions. Sole source report is disturbing. $3.5 million for a 6-month extension to allow implementation time for a new freeway service patrol firm. Are the new people getting their salaries while being trained, as well as the $3.5 million? Or is it something else? We, the taxpayers, should know. Why wasn't this included in the original, since it is absolutely logical that the new firm would need training? $800,000 for a time extension for security, apparently because no one would take on a new contract. Is the job too boring? Not enough clerks and chambers? Please explain why you need $460,000 worth of design support for the Mid-Coast trolley during construction. And $341,000 for shipping labels sounds a bit expensive. A lot of potential waste. Interesting that all the housing acceleration program
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes our public comment on consent, Chair.
Thanks, Michael. We'll go to board member comments. Mayor Jones, you're first.
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions. So on item, let's see here. Attachment 4 on page 19. I had some questions about some changes in the RTIP, number 14. There are, let's see, it's right around $15 million extra. Sorry, not 15 million dollars extra, sorry. These sidewalks, traffic signals, North Torrey Pines Road Bridge, bridge rehab, Palm Avenue, I think I only did, yeah. And then the Coastal Rail Trail, they're all in the description as increased RT CIP funding per City of San Diego audit request. What does that mean?
Susan will
Oh, okay,
come
sorry.
and answer that.
Thank you, Susan, in advance for the answer.
So SANDAG processes the RTIP amendments that are approved by each of the jurisdictions. So we are collecting all of that data, and what you'll find is the lead agency on this is the City of San Diego. So these were submitted to us for processing, and they're coming from the City of San Diego. The RTCIP is a fee that's required by the Transnet ordinance. When there's growth in a region, there needs to be a fee applied to accommodate that growth on the local streets and roads. So it looks to me like the City of San Diego is revising how they are spending those RTCIP fees that are collected. So they're moving it between their projects, and we get this information from a resolution passed by the City of San Diego.
Yeah, so, you know, like for instance, I had my Creek District project, and I'm sure I probably had some of these because I did use some local road money for it, but it was money that we had advanced. So I guess my question is there a greater, are we spending more of our regional dollars toward this project? Or is the City of San Diego actually paying the extra? And like, that's the part I'm unclear of, because it seems like these could be regional dollars that we're actually adding additional dollars. That's the part I'm unclear about.
The RTCIP is collected, and the jurisdiction, the local agency, the City of San Diego is using those monies. That is not a regional money.
Right, so let me just use a round number. So $10 million is allocated to the City of San Marcos. We don't really care where I spend that $10 million. That's my share of that big pot. That's what you're explaining, correct?
You're actually collecting these fees. The only thing that SANDAG has a role in the RTCIP fee is to maintain that you are collecting them.
Okay.
So it goes to your city. It doesn't even come to SANDAG.
It's a pass through, so that we're never, or maybe not even a pass through, it goes directly to the agency.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to clear that up because I had seen that and I went, I'm not really sure what that means. I thought that might be the case, but I wanted to verify. Okay. I'm always pressed but verify. And then my other question is on item 3.4, and that is the contract on the North Park Mid-City Bikeway. And it was an additive of $215,230. Is that an increase? Oh, sorry. I'm not sure. Oh, I just looked up. I was trying to find my notes, and then Susan was gone, so it's another person. It's fine.
No, and Susan may come back also.
No, I
If
probably
things-
doesn't fall
Hey,
under her
that's it.
jurisdiction. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like how staff is like totally prepared and they're like, oh, item 3 point whatever, and then they jump over there. Thank you. And so my question is, it shows it as an additive to alternate A, which is $215,000, $215,230, and it says that it's for a street rehab. Is that okay? Because it seems to me on bike lanes, we're not rebuilding the whole streets, and so the $215,000, where's that money coming from?
That money is coming from the budgeted amount in the contract. Talking to the designer and the project team, and that is it's necessary to construct a bike lane.
Susan, do you want to come over just to check on the source of funding and the colors of money?
Yeah, and then also if it is within the contingency amount or it's an additional cost and we're paying for a road improvement. That's part I'm not sure. Sorry, I had a busy week. I didn't have time to call and ask staff.
No,
So
no
I figured I'll just ask while I'm here, just because.
Can you
I
repeat
didn't
the
have time.
second question, please?
Okay, so on the tri-group construction and development, the base bid is 6.684574, and then the additive alternate A is 215,230, which I believe is for pavement street rehab.
Mhm.
Is that within the contingency or is that on top of the contingency? I mean, and I guess let me just, for my question. Normally, there's a contingency within a bid, and then you go, okay, we're not going to go over that. That's like what we're thinking in case an unforeseen situation comes up. We can actually handle that already. Is this on top of the contingency or is it within the contingency?
It's within the budget.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to clarify that because I mean, I know things come up. We might damage part of the road. I just want to make sure it's within the contingency and we're not adding more to that actual thing. Okay, so with that, I guess I would make a motion to approve.
Very good,
the
thank you.
second.
First Vice Chair LaCava,
Well,
would you second that?
yeah, happy to second it, to start off. I just had a question about, a couple of questions about 3.5, and I apologize to the chair and Mario for not bringing this up sooner. So I don't know who wants to answer this. So this was heard at executive committee. There was some, I think the board was fully apprised. There were some glitches in how the matrix was done. I really want to thank staff again for immediately jumping on this, fixing this problem, being fully transparent in this, and learning from this process and actually improving the process going forward. So the couple of questions that I had is, one of the things we learned is that the smart growth incentive has really gone, in my words, from a competitive grant to a geographic diversity. Any agency that actually submits an application that hits a fairly minimum standard, we're going to try very hard to fund that project. And whether you're at the number one on that scoring sheet or you're at the bottom of the scoring sheet, we're going to work very hard that. And so agencies should be apprised that that is really how we do that. The question I have, not for answering, but to reflect on, does that change the quality of the applications and how hard agencies might work when it was a competitive grant? They're really sharpening their pencils and trying very hard to get very good projects under the criteria. So, and I don't really want an answer here to kind of belabor that conversation. The other part is that some agencies have submitted multiple applications, and not all of those can be funded with whatever the allocation is for that particular year. Kudos to Nashville City, 4 projects scored in the top 10. City of San Diego, I think, scored 3 in the top 11. The question is, and again, for future consideration, and whether that needs to be a practice or a policy, can a jurisdiction actually say, maybe project A was rated the highest, we'd rather get project B funded, and whether that discretion should be allowed to individual agencies going forward, since we're no longer doing it strictly on a competitive, highest scoring basis. So.
Okay, this is a two-parter.
But, and you don't have to answer. I just want you to think about it. So I don't want to stop you either if you want to.
I just wanted to state that project competitiveness is still a large component of implementing this grant program. We still highly value the scoring criteria that's established by working groups and policy advisory committees. And while geographic distribution is applied, scoring of projects is also very important to ensure that the criteria that we establish are met for these projects, and these projects are quality. Now, there's a minimum scoring threshold that's required for each project, and a project will not be funded if you get less than 50 points. So moving forward, geographic distribution is not the only thing that is considered when we award projects.
Right.
And the board will have the opportunity to vote on the evaluation criteria for the future grant cycle. So if the board chooses not to proceed with geographic equity in the future, that's fine. That's really up to you.
Okay. And I know that we did dip into future funds to be able to fund all the projects that have been identified. And again, I voted yes on that.
I also,
Yes.
oh, sorry.
I just wanted to say that in the future, for entities that are submitting multiple applications for a specific project category, we can discuss openly with PAX and the board about ranking those projects from number 1 to X number that entities apply for. We've done that in the past. Last cycle, we didn't do that. It gets pretty complicated, but we are open to having that discussion and moving forward with that if that's what jurisdictions wish to have in competitive grant programs in the future.
Okay, I appreciate how staff listens to the board and follows the direction. A lot of these are policy decisions and the will of the board going forward. So, and then I'll close with this, going to say something that you don't normally hear out of me. Having completed 1 year on SANDAG and now to my second and likely final year on that, I really tried to pivot the city of San Diego's contribution as a regional partner and not as the big city in the area. And that often requires me to go out to either the rest of the city or to my constituents and explain why I'm voting the way that I am and why I'm prioritizing other jurisdictions. And even when there's a project in my neighborhood that is not getting funded, even though it ranked very, very highly. And I'll be very blunt. It makes it very difficult for me to do my work when 13 mayors come out and tell the city of San Diego how to run our operations. All these comments are additive. I want to be a regional partner. I want to advocate for Highway 67. I want to advocate for every neighborhood project in every city, whether you're a big city or a small city. You ought to get that funding. You ought to do good things to make the quality of life for your neighborhoods are better. I'm not asking you to make my life any easier. That is not what an elected official has to do. But it does make a difference. I want to continue to be a good regional partner for the rest of this term going forward. Let me just leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Molina.
Thank you. Thank you for the comments regarding the geographic distribution and the future of that policy, the decision on changing the policy in that regard for this grant program. I expect that that type of discussion and changes in that regard would be would go to the ITALC committee, of course, and have a very substantive conversation. Of course, come to the board of directors for another substantive conversation. Any type of changes like that. That was my request at the executive committee, and I'm making that request here as well. I'm looking forward to that discussion. Thank you.
Mayor Duncan.
Thank you. I don't have a real problem with anything that member of the CAVA said. I just want to clarify because I do think it's important for the public. I mean, that executive committee meeting, I felt we worked extremely hard at. I know Member Molina was there with me and like you're saying, you know, in that position when I was there that day, I was there as the South County representative, not Coronado. And Coronado didn't have any projects that were approved and almost every other city did. And we pushed really hard, I think, to come to a good decision, including using those additional funds that you mentioned. But I just want to point out that I questioned staff. I felt, you know, in my John Duncan direct way, are all of these very, very good projects? All of they scored highly. So I get it if you want, when you said later that these aren't all, you know, purely based on competition, you're absolutely right. But I disagree or want to clarify that to say that, you know, it's not a competitive process. I mean, there was different scorings, different things taken into account, but I'm comfortable with what the executive committee voted on and that these are very good projects for the region and that they didn't, and I know, I'm not saying necessarily meant it that way, but when, yes, there's a minimum threshold they have to meet. That doesn't mean these are minimally qualified projects, certainly in this round, in my opinion. So thank you.
And thank you for offering that clarification. That was certainly my intent.
Thank you. And finally, we have Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you very much. And Mayor Duncan is also on the Transportation Committee. So we had a robust conversation for, I want to say, well into like a year, maybe even beyond, when we were talking about the criteria. And I was one of the things that I wanted to address is the fact that many times, and this is how it feels, and it's in reality that grants end up stopping at the 8 in terms of being awarded. And so we did talk about geographic equity. It was, I think, the first time that we really talked about it, frankly, and and wanting to be, I said, look, I get it. A lot of the funds are going to be going into the metro area because you have to move around, millions of people. But what about the rest of the county? We all need to work together to ensure, number one, trust, right? Not just within us, but with the public. And that when it does come time for moving forward on a funding, getting something on the ballot, that every city or jurisdiction feels like they do have, that there is a stake in the outcome. And so for me, having watched this process, really being, I was on the transportation committee 3 years, I guess. And then just on this, just the 1 year. And I have to say, it's been a very, very good experience. Hadn't, I heard about this stuff that happened in the past, but I think this is what's really going to get us to that level. Oceanside actually ended up scoring highest. So it was equality. It was highly competitive. And but geographically, I think we would have lost. We wouldn't have gotten it. And that's what this shows, is that there are good projects out there that we can also in fact learn from, and hopefully this one, which is, we don't like calling it the road diet. We're going to have to figure out a different name for it. I told our city manager, come on, we could do this. But I appreciate this. It hasn't felt good amongst my constituents that Oceanside never rates well enough. And maybe it's, the representation that we had before. Who knows? But I do appreciate all of us working together, all of us trying to make sure that the projects around the county happen too. Because they're, to those communities, they are incredibly important. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we have Councilmember Pikus.
I just wanted to say that, if we just spent 15 minutes discussing this, probably shouldn't have been on the consent agenda. Since it should have, since there was things to discuss. Because I always considered the consent agenda is stuff that we just are so non-controversial, we just pass. So that's all I'm saying, is that this probably should have been a separate item.
Thank you very much. All right, let's vote.
I think Michael wasn't ready.
There. Okay, vote again because that wasn't. There we go. Chula Vista. Okay, that passes unanimously. All right. Now we're going to have to take a vote to extend the meeting by 10 minutes. I think we can do that because we have one more item and then we have about 15 minutes of non-agenda public comment. We have a motion to extend the meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Casares and Duncan. Please vote. Okay. Oops. Okay. Okay, we're good. All right, we're now going to go on to the IPA performance evaluation. Chair Fisher, do we want to start this?
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate that. At the audit committee, we had a really robust discussion. The work that was performed by the IPA and her team over the course of 24 and 25 was absolutely amazing. I think we spent many hours here thinking of that. It was determined that the performance was above satisfactory level. I think there was about 26 of the surveys that were filled out. I appreciate those board members who took the time to do that. And so the audit committee is recommending a salary adjustment of 2.75, which is consistent with the increase given to staff employees and the CEO, and this to be retroactive to be effective June 30th, 2025. So.
Very good. And I understand, Courtney, you have any comments? No comments? Alrighty, very good. May I, that was a motion by Chair Fisher
Second.
and a second.
Can we check, Member Fisher, the action here, it says retroactive to the IPA's hiring anniversary. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
It is not correct. There was an adjustment that was made, and so it should be consistent with the other staff members and go back to June 30th, 2025.
June 30th, 2025. Okay. So if you could change. Oh, Courtney.
Just to clarify, at the audit committee, it is my hiring anniversary, which is November 13th. Thank you.
Okay.
I have to audit it.
Very good. Okay, we have a motion, and do I have a second to this?
Yes, I second
okay.
this, and I just
Council-
want clarification on the action.
To the hire, this is correct, to the hiring anniversary, which is actually.
Member Fisher, is that fine?
I just had got Courtney is correct. That was the action that was taken at the board. I did get some clarification from Josh at Human Resources that during the meeting that I misunderstood the information that was before me because we were in agreement that the action that we took would be consistent with what the CEO received. And so it would have gone back to the June 2025 date. So I apologize for not looking at the agenda sooner. So I'm not sure, Alfred, do we have any issues with that, or Chair? I'm not sure.
I mean, it's your action, it's your recommendation. So if the committee said that it was to June 30th?
No, the committee said IPA's hiring anniversary. I think we need to see.
Oh, the committee said okay, so I'm confused with the question. Okay.
So the conversation, and then I brought it up, that it would be back to the hiring anniversary to be consistent with what the CEO was, but I misunderstood the information that was presented to me. And it would go back to be consistent with all other SANDAG employees and the CEO. So does that create any issues?
Well, if the issue is that the audit committee would have had to have made that recommendation. Did the audit committee vote on the consistency with the CEO, which was back on the June date, or did the audit committee say the hiring anniversary?
I misrepresented the information that I had saying that it was going back because that's what I had thought it said. So.
Amberlynn,
Amberlynn,
can you clarify?
Sorry, it shouldn't have been that messy. I apologize.
Thank you, Chair. So what you see on the slide before you is the recommendation of the audit committee. Nevertheless, it is the decision of the board. What to decide is the IPA's compensation adjustment and the date of that. So should the board want to change the effective date of the compensation adjustment to reflect the information that Audit Committee Chair Fisher is saying right now, it is welcome to do so, and we can alter the slide accordingly.
Josh?
Okay, so historically, the agency has had multiple compensation changes to include COLAs, general salary increases, and merits. So in those years, a COLA or a general salary increase, which are very similar, would be applicable to all employees. For FY 2026, we only had the general salary increase. So we held off at board direction until after the performance evaluation. And the board, to Amberlynn's point, the board can select either date. You can set the date. If you want it to be consistent with historicals, which also included performance-based merits that would have hit the anniversary date, you can do that. Or if you want the amount to be consistent and the time to be consistent with what all other SANDAG employees and the CEO received, you would use the June 30th, 2025 date.
Well, sounds like consistency is what we would want. If this is not a merit raise, this is basically just what everybody got. So it would go back to June 30th. Is that what I mean, I'm just one person up here. Did anybody have any preferences?
So moved.
Consistency. Okay, so June 30th. All right, we got to go to public comment. Pardon me.
Oh.
All right, we're going to change that to the June 30th date.
Okay, June 30th date would be noted on the motion. Going to public
Yes.
comment, though, we have 2 in person and 3 online. Truth followed by Caesar.
Hey, look, I'm back. For the contractor outreach campaign, couldn't that be as simple as sending out a mass email to each contractor with the whistleblower hotline number and information instead of wasting time? Goal number 4 about OIPA's recommendations being implemented by management expeditiously is an impossible goal because OIPA is not in charge of management, the board is. I wish there was enough public involvement to suggest a public survey on OIPA's performance and productivity. Under completed, there's an online recommendation dashboard live. What is that and why have I never seen that on the SANDAG website? Did I miss an audit committee or something? I really want to know who the city of San Diego employee is who received ethically questionable gifts of travel, entertainment, and home services, because there's actually like a laundry list of corruptors in the city of San Diego. Also, was every board member here present at the June ethics story about misspent federal funds and unqualified vendors? It seems like there's a continuing education need on that topic, especially after the mass TDS I heard earlier. At the last executive committee, I actually said I respect Jack and Courtney, so I can't say anything bad today. I can, however, add more work on. I would like to take this opportunity to request another audit idea. Conduct an audit on all the businesses who were labeled disadvantaged with zero validation from SANDAG. That would be the only way I could give an A+ to the audit team, especially because I'm still not sure if I ever saw Emily Mullen in person or on video or not. Overall, I'm highly satisfied with the job Cordy and crew have done when it comes to achieving the goals timely, as well as introducing helpful programs and trainings and answering board questions in a balanced and ethical manner. I've never seen Courtney choose sides and or treat anyone with disrespect, no matter how harsh or forward the question. And she continues to pay attention and take notes, even right now. My only critique is for future audits. I like more deep dives into who or what is at the core of the topic. If that requires more authority from the board and public to proceed, I'd like to see that happen because I want names of guilty parties. Let's just be transparent on what I mean. And perhaps there should be more performance measures set so we could see more accomplishments. Thanks.
Next is Cesar Javier, followed by Andrea Ebbing online. This is the Independent Performance Auditors Annual Performance.
Javier family, the smallest political unit, City of San Diego, District 9 specifically. Performance. We need representation, sir. CEO, the hierarchy leader, NGO, sir. And please listen, Councilor Rivera and Councilor Moreno, my city elected officials. Performance. Sir, we need representation. And that is lacking from EPA, federal, EPA, state, air pollution control district, water authority of the county. These are the key players in ensuring that we have quality water, quality oxygen, nitrogen, plus the variable air pollutant. I think we are thankful because of this process that is missing largely in our city of San Diego. You know, SANDAG is one element focusing on its development with its mobility circulation. How much more heavy responsibility on the other 4 elements in rural and urban setting development? Thank you, Ma'am, from Oceanside. Thank you, sir, Mayor Duncan. Thank you, sir, from Sante. And thank you, Ma'am, from San Marcos and Carlsbad. We are enlightened because we visited how they process, how they exercise governance. Especially at Sir Mito Santis. Well, all the council members say, yes, sir, present. Yes, sir, present. Trust.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Andrea Ebbing online, followed by Blair Beekman.
Hi, this is Andrea Ebbing, and I am gonna once again bring up the other pay. If we're auditing properly for the County of San Diego, we should know what $70 million of other pay is. It is not pension, it is not benefit, It is not overtime. It is not regular pay. If you go on Transparent California right now, you look under the County of San Diego, even the City of San Diego. There was communication. There's a big red box at the top of Transparent California, which shows an anomalous communication from the County of San Diego, which basically says that something has been slipped under something else. And we don't really know what that is, but the public will need to know what that is. We also, so $70 million of other pay, which I firmly believe is kickbacks from the rehab industry for addiction, homeless funding, misappropriation of those funds. Also victim centers. The Family Justice Center, which is now run by Summer Stephan, our district attorney, who is pretending to protect and serve the community, but she's actually just money laundering. That used to be overseen by the city. So why is a county employee overseeing a city initiative that was launched by Casey Gwynn, who says now that that is an absolute sham? It is not following best practices. It should not call itself a Family Justice Center. It does not help victims. It's actually just a grant and funding money laundering facility. That's what it really is. The Union Tribune caught on to that. They were on public records, look at the communication with Mara Elliott. They're onto it. We need to be auditing these situations as well. We need to be auditing people like C. April Bowling and Nancy Haley, the treasurers for all the really worst, most corrupt people in the county and city. As far as Family Justice Center goes,
Point of order, none of this has anything to do with SANDAG. It's just a complete rambling about other agencies and
Oh,
not
is it?
part
No, I think
of
it is
our
not.
audit report.
No, you're
You
one
can
of
use the
them.
word audit, but it doesn't relate to our audits whatsoever, and it's inappropriate.
Andrea, I'd like you to really try your best to speak to the item that has to do with SANDAG in your future comments. We'll let you continue with this, but you need to focus on this agency. Thank you. And the item that we're on.
Thank you, Andrea. You have 11 seconds. Andrea, you're self-muted. You have 11 seconds.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was actually talking about members of SANDAG. There's corruption going on. We're not confused. You need to audit it, and you need to audit it properly. Okay? I was on the David Webb show exposing exactly what's going on in San Diego.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Blair Beekman, followed by Paul the Bold.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thank you for this item. I'm actually learning some important things with your audit committee and at the audit committee. This was an audit committee a week or two ago. Passed. Now it's here. You're talking about whistleblower protection things. This is like the second or third time you've been talking about, I think at least audit committee, if not at other committees, about whistleblower protection ideas. So it's on your front burner of how to talk about issues. And I've always tried to bring clear that the work I do with tech accountability initially was introduced in 2014 with whistleblower protections as part of its process. So you're doing some really good, important work right now. And I'm trying to share that I want to share that more often, definitely, with other San Diego County, local cities in San Diego County, and what you're doing well. And what you can how we can take lead from that. And it just provides an awesome amount of help. So thank you that you're doing this work and effort. And it is all about transparency and accountability and making a process safe. And you're doing the job with this audit item. And I can't thank you enough. The fact that you brought this item from the committee to this board of directors, I hope you can do the same with the past, most recent public safety meeting that talked about Argus issues of public safety. Just simply bring that item. We can have much conversation about the items discussed today here at Board of Directors, I think, on that item as an idea. Good luck in that effort. And it's difficult for us to talk about smart growth technology. I hope it can be easier. I hope it can also be easier to talk about law enforcement tech. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last public comment is Paul the Bold.
Paul Bold, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Paul Bold. It's good that the independent auditor's performance review comes after the most scathing audit of all, because maybe you'll finally see the subtext that runs through all the obfuscating and delays, that there is still waste, fraud, and abuse and corruption at SANDAG, and she has lots of work ahead of her. And it is notable that the audit by the Wagner firm confirmed what she found earlier, although this is not mentioned in the presentation. I noticed that she did not meet her goal of spending 70% of budgeted versus actual hours expended per audit. To me, this suggests that she is doing her job, but employed bids and infighting prevents her from doing what she was hired to do. And leadership. I don't know what sort of collaborative and respectful relationship she can establish with the corrupt auditee, but maybe one goal should be how many people she can piss off. But from what I've seen, though, she is patient and respectful where appropriate, which is most of the time when she's speaking to you, by the way. I keep saying that you should have some sort of audit presence, if not a report at every meeting, to ensure that contracts and other goals are appropriate and that prior audit recommendations are followed. I think the auditor deserves a good raise, maybe 10,000 for each audit recommendation over 5 years old that is still not implemented, plus the regular cost of living adjustments.
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes our public comment on this item.
Thank you. Okay, let's vote on this item, please.
I know, it didn't take it at first.
Coronado. Duncan. Vote.
Thank you.
Okay, that passes unanimously. We're now on to non-agenda public comments. This is when your opportunity to speak on comments, items that are not on the agenda. And you'll have 2 minutes.
First up, we have a truth, followed by Teresa Valenzuela.
Anyone who left the meeting before non-agenda is absolutely a loser. Put on the record. And it sounded today like Mayor Vivian wanted to ignore the Brown Act's requirement of public comment in favor of a sanctuary county where 8-year-old children in Julian can be killed by drunk drivers who enter the country illegally. That being said, I want to thank Lisa for maintaining an ethical, transparent, and very wise leadership today. However, disenfranchisement has happened today with public comment by having it at the very end for non-agenda. One of the things I wanted to say today, one of the losers I wanted to address is not here. So I'm not going to address them today. So back in 2024, I believe this sign here used to hang outside the old SANDAG building. Remember it? I do. But don't worry, it now has a permanent home at the county. Call 1-800-FRAUD. I've been trying to do it for years. It's crazy. Flipping the paper. Now, because SANDAG disenfranchises public comment by refusing to play submitted videos outside of Zoom, through the clerk, I emailed all of you a fun 2-minute video I made on public transit safety and the lack of it being properly addressed by SANDAG and MTS. Perception versus reality. So this video here, which you can watch on my Instagram, Truth Sonics, it includes 3 incidences in 3 different months of 2 different fights. The last fight, a guy got punched and I chased a runaway Chihuahua back onto the trolley. And no, I'm not lying. Again, this is what children and women are experiencing in the public transit that SANDAG funds. Lauren mentioned perceptions, but perception is reality to those who perceive it. How can anyone care about Americans being deported, but temporarily, or sorry, detained temporarily, deported hopefully forever, but not care about violence upon the most vulnerable in your own communities who are American citizens? And for anyone ignorant who wishes I would address MTS, I did for 2 years. When there's a corrupt, union-controlled board engaged in fraud, waste, and abuse, that's when I go higher up to who is funding MTS. And if there's no paid ridership or safety requirements from SANDAG to reduce the 484 plus assaults on the trolley last year, then I will next go to the feds and get their
Thank you.
perspective.
Your time has expired. Next is Teresa Valenzuela, followed by Purita Javier. So Teresa left, so go ahead. Purita Javier, followed by Cesar Javier.
Good afternoon. Into your hands we trust. We, Cesar and Purita Javier, both serious with existing medical condition and victims of ceramics manufacturing and kiln emissions, toxic gases constructed and operated at a residential zone neighborhood since 1984. We are hurt physically, emotionally, and financially. We live in fear, depression, anxiety, and stress. Number two, we need water to clear the surfaces from droplets of particulates and contaminates, and water to irrigate plants and trees as advised by EPA Sacramento. EPA federal authority responded explaining that APCD must look at the limit of permit and that the issue falls on city zoning.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Standard.
Next is Cesar Javier, followed by Marco Espinoza.
In short, we need justice. Thank you for the algorithm. And with that platform, you can see well now where we stand in the community. We are left behind, if I use a military language. We crossed the 38th parallel, said my father, who fought in the Korean and even in the Vietnam War. I carry that spirit. We crossed the line, if only to protect and defend our Constitution. What did we get? Restraining order. The judge said, Mr. Javier, I know the owner. He is a good man. Your Honor, what about me? Check my record. Argis can provide you documents. And then second defense, when I crossed the 38th parallel line, I was perceived as making noise. We are disturbing the owner by using the transistor radio, religious preaching, and enjoying our life out our backyard. Using my jackhammer as advised by the IPA. Sacramento, plant more trees, Mr. Javier. What did I do? I used my jackhammer because the ground is a riverbed. And the owner said, oh, you're making noise. My wife is undergoing therapy. What about us since 1984? Justice, Mr. Lacaba, sir. Ma'am Moreno, ma'am, public safety. I thought you are the budget chair committee. Oh, I'm sorry. What's that working committee? I love Madam Moreno because he is still
Thank you.
surviving.
Your time has expired. Next is Marco Espinoza, followed by Andrea Ebbing online.
Hello, afternoon. Marcus Spinoza. You all must have deep hearts, because my. And Madam Chair, you're great at your chairmanship. I always like it when I hear your voice on Zoom. Ideas. First one is for the terminals at all the trolley stations. Currently, they only you can check your balance and you can add funds. I was wondering if they could be more interactive and where you can see like live times of where a bus is, a trolley is, or just at the very least be able to use the screen to look up a bus route and see the times on it. Something like that. Hope that is clear enough. Next one would be, oh, this is just my 2 cents I'd like to advocate for. Motorcycle parking whenever you guys are planning your localities. I was a bike rider. I think you would say a CPI project. I remember when I would drive to Hummel Casino for work, and the students in the local neighborhood, they're just walking on dirt on the side of the road. So I'm sure Supervisor Anderson looks that one. Next is, oh, Iris Avenue Trolley Station. If you look at Google Maps, that's the locale, that spot is such a poor design. You have a freeway, you have a neighborhood street, you have the trolley line, you have it needs a whole remodel work. That's a big project. But fortunately there's lots of land in the area in terms of those large shipping buildings or commercial buildings, and I don't have enough time for the rest. Carlsbad, your water is getting around town.
Thank you. Next is Andrea Ebbing online, followed by the original draw.
Hey, it's Andrea Ebbing, and I am so glad I live in the United States of America and I have First Amendment rights. And I'm so glad that the people who are involved in the corruption taking place in SANDAG are smoking themselves out. Now I have a clear path of exactly who I need to look into and what organizations I need to further look into. Family Justice Center being one of them. I don't know who that was speaking over me and telling me I was off topic and telling me I was rambling when I'm talking about improper auditing and $70 million that was awarded to the county and other pay. That's not rambling. Those are facts. And anyone can look it up on Transparent California. And if you don't like that rambling, maybe you could look into your own acts. I mean, if that was John Duncan from Coronado, I can't help but wonder why my ex, the owner of Apex Recovery, in which the county awarded $5 million after the abduction of my children and my attempted murder, and the Family Justice Center didn't do a damn thing except for turn me away. And if that happens to your daughter and somebody tells her she's rambling over it, then good. That's exactly what you deserve. And why did my ex's wife drop off gift cards to John Duncan's office, redeemable for cash, on October 3rd, 2020? October 3rd, 2020. It is online. Look it up on the Coronado Village News. There she is, my ex's wife, delivering gift cards to Apex Recovery, the kickback provider, contributing to the $70 million of other pay that was awarded to county employees and the $152 million of other pay awarded to city employees. Not overtime, not pension, not benefits, not regular pay. It's called kickbacks for defendants placed in their programs. Why are you connected to them? What's the connection? Were you neighbors? Really? Gift cards redeemable for cash to Officer Amy Beebe, a complete menace to society. A child trafficking menace to society who does not protect and serve the community. She victimizes victims, just like DA Summer Stephan. Thanks.
Next, the original draw, followed by Blair Beekman.
Andrea, you're over target. That was Duncan, and his butt is hurting because you're exposing the fraud, waste, and abuse that he is engaged in. So keep on doing it because they do draw themselves out. And it's interesting to live in a world that is inverted and be outside of it and see the things that are going on, because this is Satan's playground. where what's good is bad and what's bad is good. And you guys sit here and talk about the quality of life of people. That is so egregious because the people around you and your communities are suffering. Our homeless brothers and sisters are being taken advantage of. Children are being trafficked. And you guys care more about road diets and BS like that and saving the planet, or, making sure illegal aliens can rape children or, murder them in a vehicle when they should have been deported. You guys sure care about their quality of life. But when it comes to people in your communities, you guys are sitting there and you're racketeering with our money. And then you sit and you shut people up when they call you out about it. It's like all you're doing is showing what you guys are all about. And it's sad because the quality of life is actually dwindling for people in our communities, and you impede their ability to thrive in life. And it is disgusting because you guys sit up there and you virtue signal like you give a shit about people's quality of life. You care about your own, you care about the people who you fill their pockets, but you don't care about the people in our communities. Again, you care more about saving the planet, right? Who are you saving it for? I'm wondering. Are you saving it for yourself, or are you saving it for people that don't give a shit about you and want you guys in a 15-minute city as well? They just need you to do their bidding like little puppets. It's disgusting. And it's sad because being able to see this world for what it is and see the people who sit there like Satan and virtue signal and masquerade as angels of light when you guys are filled with darkness. Because if you cared about the quality of life of anybody in the community, it would be a reflection of what we see around us. And you can tell the
Thank you. Your time has expired. Next is Blair Beekman, followed by our last public comment, Paul the Bold.
Hi, thank you, Blair Beekman. Yeah, to add to previous public comment, in hearing the public, I hope you're learning to respond to the ICE demonstrations and work of ICE around the country at this time. I think we have to be very mindful of what the federal administration is doing and work as a full community process to really try to understand it and get understanding of it. I don't think he's doing the right thing. I think he's gone seriously in the wrong direction. And we have to acknowledge what he is actually trying to do and find antidotes and dialogue to address what he is doing. The cities, San Francisco Bay Area cities did an awesome job to really explain they don't want ICE agents in their cities. They're doing something important about crime issues that is fully addressing crime. So they don't want 10 tons of more agents, and that dialogue worked. I know the Super Bowl was in town, was coming, so that was also a part of it. But we have to be united in what we work towards in San Diego, and I think that unitedness is around that we have to make specific asks that our ICE agents do not, they know how to de-escalate, and they don't over-militarize themselves in what they do. Hopefully, we can ask them to leave fully altogether. I mean, that is the ultimate goal. But we have to be clear that they have to work in certain ways and can't do certain things. And I hope we can grow united and create a really humanistic goals in doing that in San Diego. The Oakland area has ended their flock program. So they're trying to. So I mean, Oakland is. So I think San Diego, the city, is trying to learn those lessons.
Thank
Good
you.
luck
Your
how we
time
do that.
has expired. Our last public comment is Paul the Bold.
Thanks, Paul Bowl. Thank you, Mario, for an update on all those incomplete audit recommendations at the beginning of the meeting. Nice to have consultation with the tribes, but there's nothing like the vote. Now that the MTS board has come out against driverless taxis and is challenging them at state level, I hope you do too. Waymo driverless taxis have been given the green light to infest the entire county. AI and EV add up to a disaster in the making with errors, accidents, blocked streets, or evac routes, no conscience, And if history is our guide, one or more corporations will be making excuses for their defective programming rather than prompt action. Plus, those EV accidents could result in serious fires and people getting trapped in their burning Teslas. A blocked street or intersection, as it happened in cities like SF, or an accident or spontaneous ignition can inconvenience or affect a large number of people. While in a regular car, it's mostly the driver or occupants who are affected. Also, with a regular car, there's someone to blame, not a corporation, which often mires legal recovery and influence peddling and complicated claims procedures. Another angle to this is those robo-taxis could price rideshare drivers out of their jobs. Ask Shawnilo Rivera, who wants to protect workers and their families depend on that
Thank you. Your
for
time
work.
has expired. That concludes our public comment, Chair.
Very good. The next Board of Directors meeting will be February 13th at 9 a.m. This meeting is adjourned.